Chapter 1485. Lu Chen did not want any of the other materials in the vein. He only wanted the divine power stones. To the other teams, this was definitely a free trade. This. Brother Lone Quang, how can we refuse? I never thought that we would also have the chance to get a share of the loot. Solipsistic, since we have so many people, let's loot the vein first. I guarantee that we will find all the divine power stones for you. Nightmare thought for a moment and said, everyone, Brother Lone Quang is willing to share the opportunity with us, but we cannot take advantage of others. Everyone, sign an immortal contract and promise not to hide the ores. We will also exchange the corresponding divine power stones for other resources. Yes, yes, yes. This way, we can avoid people who only collect the ores they need and not look for the divine power stones. Nightmare said, then it's decided. Everyone, please report the information of the main vein. We have 1 day to collect the ores. In terms of scale, this vein is not the largest. However, this is a brand new vein. Everything on the ground is wealth. After signing the immortal contract, everyone should pay attention to avoid the primal chaos beasts and quickly collect the ores. Nightmare had been helping Lu Chen. After signing the immortal contract, these teams hurriedly scattered in all directions to look for ores. Not long after, only Lu Chen's team and Nightmare's team were left. Thank you for your help, brother. Lu Chen cupped his fists towards Nightmare. It was also because of Nightmare's rich experience that he thought more carefully than Lu Chen. Nightmare smiled faintly as he looked at Lu Chen meaningfully. Lone Tyrant. He muttered Lu Chen's name once more. In the past, I've always thought that you were a proud and aloof person. Now that I've met you today, you've truly surprised me. You remind me of some people I met a long time ago. It seemed that Nightmare was recalling his experience before he became a god. Afterward, Nightmare looked at Lu Chen and said, Old brother Du Quang, I've actually seen the dreams of many deities. Some of them thought that they had severed their mortal bonds, but, could it be that they can sever their mortal bonds so easily? Some people have sealed their past away, not daring to recall it. But you, on the other hand, are living more realistically than any other god. I'm a little envious, sighing, Nightmare said, Brother Lone Tyrant, I, Nightmare, do not have many friends in God's domain. If you don't mind, you can come find me if you need my help in the future. This is my sound transmission talisman. Lu Chen took the voice transmission talisman and said, It's my honor to know Brother Nightmare. King of Nightmares smiled and nodded. His eyes were full of praise. Alright. It's time for our team to go pick up some money. I'm afraid there won't be a second chance if we miss this opportunity. Ha 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 ha. These 200 teams were all professional mining teams. They were very experienced and knew how to avoid the chaos beasts. Little Green was very smart. In 1 day, the number of God Might stones in front of Lu Chen increased. Of course, they also gained a lot of benefits. Every team earned a lot. De Zhuang and the Marshal had already returned to their original forms. The two of them stood at the side and watched as Lu Chen sat there collecting the God Might stones. This kid really knows how to conduct himself. He earned so much more than the 4 of them. He even won over their hearts. The Marshal said. De Zhuang pursed his lips. His way of thinking is different from others. Along the way, he has dealt with so many dangers. Sigh, to be honest, I really want to take some. What do you want to do? The Marshal narrowed his eyes and looked at De Zhuang. I want to. De Zhuang was halfway through his sentence when he saw the Marshal's gaze. He immediately stopped and said, What I want to do is none of your business. The two of them looked away. However, no one knew what they were thinking. 1 day later, Lu Chen's backpack was filled with God Might stones of various sizes. It was a pity that there were no more God Might stones here. Those things seemed to be very rare and could only be found by chance. Lu Chen had obtained a large number of God Might stones. The other teams had also dug up a large number of ores. It could be said that everyone was happy. Soon, the people of the 8 factions would come to the mining area. Lu Chen did not want to meet them and was already preparing to leave. There were a few intermediate gods who were all team leaders. They left a sound transmission talisman for Lu Chen, saying that they hoped to keep in touch in the future. Lu Chen thanked them one by one and quickly left the mining area with Netherworld and the others. After leaving the mining area, Lu Chen quickly left the Holy Land to avoid the people of the 8 factions and came to the Bone Demon's world of faith. In the small wooden house, Lu Chen looked at Netherworld and the others. Now, the 3 of them had wrapped themselves up tightly. They were not skeletons, but more like mummies. They could not even transform into human form. This meant that their strength had been greatly reduced. The life bone was a weakness for the undead race. However, it was also the source of power outside the spirit nucleus. It was just like the spirit nucleus of other races. The spirit nucleus provided spiritual power, but it was extremely weak. Lu Chen felt sad. The 3 of them had teamed up with him and had been helping him all this time. He had not protected his friends well. He asked, "Is there any way to help you recover your life bones?" Netherworld said, "We undead race can cultivate our own life bones. We just need some time. You don't have to worry about us." How could Lu Chen not see that Netherworld was pretending to be relaxed? If it was so easy to cultivate a life bone, wouldn't every undead race have dozens of life bones? Then, how do you cultivate your life bones? Lu Chen could only ask from a different angle. Withered Claw said, "Oh, this is not a secret. Some tombs contain undead spiritual energy. We refine the spiritual energy and use it to cultivate our life bones." Lu Chen thought about it. Netherworld and the other 2 did not have many worlds of faith. Otherwise, they would not have to stay in the Holy Land all year round. Rhubarb had mentioned that the outer world was extremely chaotic and there were constant battles. In that case, there would definitely be battlefields and tombs. The death cheat accumulated in these places for a long time must be very terrifying. Moreover, there should be very few undead race who would go there to cultivate. If he could bring Netherworld and the others to the outer world, it would definitely be an opportunity for them to improve their strength. However, the 3 elders of the Dao faction had said that ordinary people from the Jiutian could not enter the outer world. Later, Netherworld and the others left for the time being. Lu Chen closed the door and looked at the 2 people sitting in the corner. 2 seniors, De Zhuang smiled slightly. "Kid, do you want to take them to the outer world?" Lu Chen cupped his fists and said, "Sure enough, I can't hide it from the seniors." However, the 3 elders of the Dao faction said that no one can pass through that passage. "I'm just taking a risk, but I'm afraid it will be difficult for them to pass through." De Zhuang thought about it and said, "Well, I'm sorry. Since we said that we won't help you, we won't guide you." Lu Chen sighed. Sure enough, these 2 people were still unwilling to tell him. Disappointed, he came to the snow mountain alone. Lu Chen seized the time to cultivate for the time being. This cultivation lasted until the middle of the night. While Lu Chen was cultivating, a small voice suddenly came from beside him. "Little Lu Chen, come to the back of the mountain. Be quiet, don't let Pangu see you." "Ah." Lu Chen opened his eyes. There was no trace of anyone around. It was a sound transmission. It seemed that only Pangu and Netherworld could directly send a sound transmission without using a sound transmission talisman. "Senior Netherworld. Aya, hurry up. Pangu is asleep. I'll wait for you at the back of the mountain." The voice sounded a little anxious, like a thief. Chapter 1486. Lu Chen came to the other side of the snowy mountain, where someone was already waiting for him. "Senior 9 Nether, why are you looking for me?" "Shoo. Lower your voice. Nine Nether came before Lu Chen and whispered, "Didn't you want to bring Netherworld and the rest to outer space?" Lu Chen seemed to be affected as well. He bowed and whispered, "Yes. Senior, do you have any ideas? It's quite a coincidence." Someone said, after 2 of their life bones were taken away, their strength was greatly reduced. Plus, they aren't very strong, so they can't even be considered gods now. Jiutian's transportation array to outer space is set in the 8th heaven. Lower gods to supreme gods can't pass through, but those who haven't become gods can. Ah. Why is that? Lu Chen was surprised. Because in the 8th heaven, everyone is a god. Someone said matter-of-factly. You're the odd one out. If you want to bring Netherworld and the rest with you, it might not be safe. It's best if you destroy their last life bone. That way, it'll be safer. Destroy their last life bone. Lu Chen's eyes widened. This sacrifice seemed a little too big. Doesn't that mean they'll all die? No, I don't mean to completely destroy them, but to refine and weaken their life bones, Nine Nether said. Make their life bones extremely weak, but not so weak that they'll die. This requires you to control your spiritual power to the extreme. Lu Chen gasped. Isn't this a little too dangerous? Nine Nether looked at Lu Chen and suddenly asked, from the few battles you've had, your spiritual power has reached the 3rd level of minute subtlety, right? Yes. Nine Nether stroked his chin. Then it shouldn't be a problem. Are you confident in your spiritual power? I'm quite confident, but, is this the only way? Then let's give it a try. You have to know that outer space has existed longer than Jiutian. Mutated beasts kill each other all year round, and it's extremely chaotic. The death aura it contains is thousands of times stronger than this world of undead faith. There really isn't a race more suitable for cultivating in outer space than the undead race. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. So what if they lost 3 fate bones? As long as they can get out, their strength will increase by leaps and bounds. Lu Chen frowned and pondered for a moment before saying, I still need to discuss this matter with them. But, Senior, why are you suddenly willing to help me? I can help you. Nine Nether instantly became very serious. I'm helping them. Alright, it's time for me to return. Otherwise, Pangu will discover me. Think about it carefully. If you miss this opportunity, with Yuming and the others' natural endowments, their accomplishments will probably be extremely limited. After saying that, Nine Nether disappeared without a trace. Lu Chen returned to his original spot with a heavy heart. He wanted to continue cultivating, but he found that he wasn't in the mood. Yuming and the others had helped him so much. If they hadn't helped Lu Chen find the mineral veins, they wouldn't have lost their cultivation. Lu Chen naturally wanted to help them improve their strength. It was just that this matter was a bit dangerous. He wanted to refine their last fate bone. If there was even the slightest mistake, the 3 of them would fall. If they were safe and cultivated slowly, they could still raise their level. In comparison, he didn't know what they would choose. In the second half of the night, Lu Chen couldn't cultivate, so he simply leaned against a rock and rested. Hey, little Lu Chen. Suddenly, a voice came from behind him. Lu Chen was shocked and looked back. He didn't know when, but De Zhuang was already sitting beside him. This guy, fortunately, didn't intend to kill him. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know how he died. Senior Pangu, why are you here? Hee. De Zhuang smiled proudly. Do you realize that there's still a big gap between you and me? Kid, remember, there's always someone better. Pangu suddenly started preaching. Senior Pangu, I don't think I'm that strong. Ha, you don't need to be humble. I just hoped that you could guard against arrogance and rashness. Speaking of which, your growth speed, your ability to respond to emergencies, your combat skills, and your way of thinking are all quite good. Pangu was actually praising him. This made Lu Chen feel that this fellow didn't have any good intentions. Senior, what are you trying to say? Cough cough. I'm just passing on some experience to you. Pangu emphasized the word pass on. As he spoke, he looked at Lu Chen with a meaningful gaze, as if hoping that he could comprehend something. Lu Chen blinked. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Oh. Oh. Just an oh, and that's it." De Zhuang scratched his head anxiously. This child seemed quite smart. I've already said it so bluntly, but he still didn't understand what I meant. But he couldn't be blamed. He probably didn't think in that direction at all. After all, he was usually so cold and aloof. It seemed that he still needed to change his image. Thinking of this, Pangu stood up and walked in front of Lu Chen. With his hands behind his back, he looked at the starry sky. At the peak of martial arts, one can see all the mountains, the sky, and the stars. Which cultivator hasn't imagined such a scene? However, the path of martial arts is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Walking alone is always full of difficulties. Pangu's voice became unfathomable, deep and profound. After Pangu finished speaking, he waited for a while. In the end, there was no reply. Pangu turned around and found that Lu Chen was just in a daze. This kid, can't he understand it all? Pangu sighed. All right, let's start with the matter at hand. Little Lu Chen, are you still worried about your friend? Yes. Lu Chen finally came back to his senses. Do you know that the 8 supreme gods spent 1,000 years to open a new passage to the outer heavens? And many people can pass through this passage. Ah. Lu Chen's eyes widened. I didn't know about this. Pangu nodded. It seems that the 8th heaven has a big operation this time. It's a pity that your friend is not strong enough to enter the 8 systems. So, if you want to take them to the outer heavens, you can only do the opposite. Weaken their strength until they are below the gods. Then, they can enter from the original passage. Lu Chen's eyes widened. Pangu's suggestion was the same as Joyo's. Since the 2 supreme gods said so, it seemed that this was the only way. Little Lu Chen, you once asked me what the Jiutian is. To be honest, I don't know either. After all, I'm already a person of the past. Because the space-time turbulence I'm in is within the Jiutian, I'm now part of the Jiutian. But I can tell you one thing, it must be powerful beyond your imagination. Even, beyond my strength back then. So, if you want to ascend to the 9th heaven, you must at least surpass me back then. Lu Chen frowned. Surpass Pangu back then? The god of creation who created the world. Chapter 1487. Your foundation is not stable enough to surpass me. Pangu suddenly said. Pangu's words made Lu Chen re-evaluate his strength. The divine power stone could allow him to level up quickly, but did he have the combat power to match his level? So far, he had only mastered 2 divine skills, God's Descent and Demon Abyss. His understanding of these 2 divine skills was not deep. He had not begun to comprehend the sky-sealing sun-shooting arrow. Other than that, he had not fully mastered the god-slaying spear and true fire mysterious ice sword. Although his attributes were very high, and his other skills were also very destructive, they could not be compared to divine skills in terms of changes and effects. In the past, he could fight opponents who were several realms higher, but now he could only fight opponents who were 2 stars higher. To surpass Pangu, in addition to his level, his foundation must be very stable. Unfortunately, even if Lu Chen himself was aware of this, he didn't have much time. Since he came to the 8th heaven, things had happened one after another. Even the time he had to cultivate was very limited. Thinking of this, Lu Chen could not help but sigh and say helplessly, Senior, it's not that I don't want to build a stable foundation, but my time is too tight. Many times, I have no choice. Pangu smiled. I can see that. However, people like you will always be in the eye of the storm. However, the more it is so, the more you have to be stable. On the path of cultivation, the foundation determines the height you can reach in the future. The reason why the Hongmeng divine tree could become a supreme god, think about how much accumulation it had. Since the other supreme gods can be on the same level as it, their strength should be similar to it. To surpass them, you have to be more stable than them. It had to be said that Pangu's words were at the level of a senior expert, and it made Lu Chen suddenly wake up. Little Lu Chen, if you want to go far, you have to be stable. Your little golden carp should be coming to find you soon. The place she found should be of some help to you. Lu Chen looked up at Pangu. Pangu actually knew the whereabouts of the little golden carp. Oh no! That guy Nine Nether seems to have found something wrong. I have to go first. Pangu suddenly panicked. Hey, don't tell anyone that I came to find you. I'm leaving. After Pangu finished speaking, his figure disappeared into thin air in front of Lu Chen. Shifeng did not know what kind of displacement skill it was. Lu Chen was left alone in the snow. Lu Chen smiled and shook his head. Pangu and Nine Nether, these two fellows, were really confusing. Sometimes, they were like two children. However, perhaps only those who had reached their level would be able to laugh at the winds and clouds of the game, God's domain. The next day, Netherworld and the others came to visit Lu Chen. Lu Chen took the opportunity to tell the three about the life bone. Lone Tyrant, are you saying that you want us to lose almost all of our cultivation and go to the outer world with you as non-gods? Lu Chen nodded. Something like that. Of course, you can also slowly recover your strength in the world of faith. That's safer. Withered Claw fiercely patted Lu Chen's shoulder and excitedly said, what kind of joke is this? Who wants to slowly recover their strength in the world of faith? How many years would that take? Moreover, even if they cultivated for hundreds or thousands of years, they would only be able to recover their original strength at most. Netherworld also seemed somewhat excited. If we can go to the outer world, we might be able to increase our strength in a short period of time. We might even be able to advance to intermediate god, or even superior god. Bone Demon softly said, I don't want to wait any longer. I'm too embarrassed like this. Lu Chen was rather surprised. The three of them actually agreed to go to the outer world so straightforwardly. This seems a little dangerous. After all, this is the last life bone. Do you want to reconsider? Lu Chen still needed to remind them of the risks. Lone Tyrant, with your control over spiritual energy, who else can we trust but you? That's right. At worst, we'll just die. However, if we succeed, we'll be able to advance several levels. Why not take the risk? Furthermore, we also want to go to the outer world to take a look. Seeing that the three of them had already made up their minds, Lu Chen took a deep breath. Alright, I'll refine your life bones. Netherworld was the first to hand over his life bone. Lu Chen got Little Beast and the others to stand guard outside. Even though there shouldn't be any danger here, no mistakes could be made. Refining a life bone was similar to absorbing the spiritual energy from a beast core. To Lu Chen, it wasn't very difficult. What he needed to do was to concentrate and adjust the circulation of his spiritual energy to synchronize with the circulation of the spiritual energy in the life bone. Then, he would proceed in order and guide the spiritual energy to flow out. Time passed by minute by minute. Lu Chen meticulously refined Netherworld's life bone. After 2 hours, Netherworld's life bone was completely refined. There was only an extremely weak spiritual energy left in the life bone. When Netherworld put the life bone back into his body, even his rank changed. 9-star Netherworld Immortal Supremacy. Netherworld looked at his own rank in shock. He had already become a Supremacy Immortal. Ha 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 ha, I've returned to hundreds of years ago. Speaking of which, I really missed the days back then. Skeleton hurriedly took out his life bone and handed it to Lu Chen. Old Kwang, this is mine. 2 hours later, Skeleton also retreated to a 9-star supremacy. In the end, Bone Demon took out her life bone in embarrassment. Brother Kwang, thank you for your trouble. Lu Chen smiled and began to refine Bone Demon's life bone. When refining the life bone, the spiritual energy contained in the life bone was absorbed by Lu Chen at the same time. Therefore, he didn't feel tired. Instead, he became more and more energetic. It also took 2 hours for Lu Chen to complete the refinement of Bone Demon's life bone. After Bone Demon put back the life bone, there were already 3 supremacies standing in front of Lu Chen. Speaking of which, we seem to still be able to absorb the power of faith, but our spiritual energy level has dropped to the level of an immortal supremacy, Netherworld said after sensing it. The power of faith isn't stored in the life bone, so it hasn't been lost. It's just that the spiritual energy and bone strength have dropped a lot, Skeleton said. This is great. Lone Kwang, we're all little supremacies now. It seems like we can only rely on you. Lu Chen smiled. Don't worry, I definitely won't let anything happen to you guys this time. When we reach outer space, I'll find a place for you guys to cultivate. I must raise your level as soon as possible. After staying in the snow mountain for a few days, the ice surface of the lake at the foot of the mountain was suddenly knocked open. A huge golden carp jumped out from the bottom of the lake and instantly turned into a graceful beauty. Boss, I'm back. Can you come down and pick me up? Little golden carp said to the voice transmission talisman. Not long after, Lu Chen brought the little beast and the others to the foot of the mountain. Little golden carp. Boss. Little golden carp pounced into Lu Chen's arms. Little golden carp missed you so much. Little golden carp's slightly warm body and soft and smooth body touching Lu Chen gave Lu Chen an indescribable feeling. Little golden carp frowned slightly and said to Rhubarb, Little golden carp didn't miss us. She only missed Dad. Rhubarb, we always thought that little golden carp should be a younger sister. Could it be that, we were all wrong? Rhubarb nodded. Indeed, she could also be a stepmother, it's just that although your dad has always been trying to get rid of being single, he still doesn't have the intelligence to do so. This marriage is probably hopeless. Chapter 1488. The little golden carp went out for a period of time and actually found an abandoned world without an owner. That world was barren and full of devastation. The ground was torn apart and the mountains had obvious traces of being cut open. It seemed that some powerful people fought here, causing this world to be unrecognizable and uninhabitable. This crack actually goes deep into the earth's core. Withered claw came out from the ground. At least a superior god fought here to cause such terrifying destruction. Speaking of the earth's core, Lu Chen also went underground to take a look. Unfortunately, the energy of the earth's core was not high enough. For Lu Chen's cultivation, the fire element attribute was not very helpful. This place has been abandoned for a long time. I reckon the planet won't last much longer. Yu Ming said, from the state of the earth's core, it might be less than 3 years. Bone Demon asked, Little golden carp, is there really a space-time space here? The little golden carp nodded, it can't be wrong. Follow me. In the sky above a cliff, there was a black whirlpool suspended in midair. It's here. The little golden carp pointed at the black hole and said, the energy flow is obviously different from the surroundings. It should be a space formed after the space-time distortion during the battle between powerful people. The Earth's core of this world is damaged and can't be repaired. Boss, this kind of crack is very dangerous. The gravity inside is very strong. Once you enter, you need to be able to come out by yourself. Moreover, this world won't last much longer. It should be destroyed in 3 years. If you can't come out by then, you will be annihilated together with the space. The little beast frowned and said, "Little golden carp, this place is also very dangerous." The little golden carp nodded, "It is very dangerous. Because of this, ordinary people don't dare to enter. However, this is the best place to cultivate. Not only does the time flow very slow inside, it can reach a ratio of 1 to 15. The most important thing is that under the high pressure inside, it is also very helpful for cultivation. Not only can you cultivate your mental cultivation method to level up here, you can also comprehend your cultivation method. I thought maybe boss could use it, so I brought you here to take a look." Lu Chen nodded his head. It seemed that this cultivation point was not something that could be easily used. This place is a bit similar to the black hole arrow of the god of hunting. Lu Chen muttered. "Little golden carp, what realm do you think you need to reach to get out of here? It's not just a matter of cultivation level." Little golden carp said, "Boss needs to use a high-level displacement skill and use a skill that has enough damage to tear open the crack and escape from inside. Displacement and cultivation methods are indispensable. As for how many attacks I'll need, I'll have to test it out before I know." Lu Chen thought about it. If time passed slowly in there, then 3 years in the outside world would be equivalent to 45 years in there. He wondered if he could come out. However, the little golden carp said that the most important thing about this place was that the pressure here was far greater than ordinary cultivation places. Therefore, the effect was better than other cultivation places. De Zhuang and De Shuai remained silent as they watched Lu Chen make his decision. After weighing the pros and cons for a moment, Lu Chen gritted his teeth and said, "All right, then I'll go in." It was a pity that Yu Ming and the others were too weak and couldn't enter with Lu Chen. "Little beast, follow me. I'll bring you to the world of beasts," little golden carp said. "If you want to go to outer space, you need to increase your strength." Hearing that there was a world of beasts, the 4 beasts were immediately interested. After everyone's cultivation was arranged, Lu Chen looked at De Zhuang and De Shuai. "Seniors, do you want to go in with me?" De Zhuang shook his head. "Kid, don't count on us. If you can't get out, we'll help you. It's not convenient for us to enter this place. We can't exist in 2 space-time chaotic spaces at the same time." To Pan Gu and 9 underworlds, Jiutian was an existence with space-time disorder. If they entered this crack, it would be a mistake on top of a mistake. It would easily lead to some unknown mistakes. Since that was the case, Lu Chen didn't delay any longer and stepped into the space-time crack. This wasn't a teleportation array, so there wouldn't be any dizziness. However, when Lu Chen entered, he felt a huge pressure around him, making him a little breathless. Lu Chen hurriedly circulated his spiritual power to resist the strong pressure. "What is this place? The pressure is so great," Lu Chen said in surprise. "How can I cultivate in this place?" However, Lu Chen couldn't leave this place now. Since he was already here, Lu Chen took a deep breath and thought of a solution. "I should increase my attributes first. Otherwise, I won't be able to cultivate." Thinking of this, Lu Chen took out the Divine Might Stone and began to absorb the spiritual power of the Divine Might Stone. It can't be. Even controlling the spiritual power has become strenuous. Lu Chen frowned. Usually, he could easily absorb the spiritual power, but now he had to do his best. The passage of time in the crack was 1 to 15. Lu Chen spent 10 days, which was equivalent to 150 days in the outside world before he absorbed all the Divine Might Stone. "I'm almost there. Forget it, there won't be any qualitative change from 5-star to 6-star. At least my attributes have increased by a lot, so the effect won't be much different." Lu Chen felt the pressure in the space again, and it was indeed much easier than before. Then, Lu Chen took out the God-slaying spear. Great Void Arm, Endless Break. Dawn, Lu Chen had just used the spear technique that he had learned long ago, but his attack was ineffective. The huge pressure made Lu Chen's attack sink like a stone into the sea without causing any ripples. Damn, I can't even unleash the power of the technique. Lu Chen's eyes widened. The danger in this crack was beyond his imagination. It seems that I need more connections to break through this space. Only by concentrating the damage will I be able to get out in 3 years. After saying that, Lu Chen swung his spear again. As the pressure in the space was too great, Lu Chen was sweating profusely after practicing for a while. He sat down to adjust his breathing. In the following days, Lu Chen practiced the technique countless times. Lu Chen felt that after at least 10 years, he could already use the moves that he had learned in this world. My control is stronger than before. Lu Chen looked at the spear in his hand. Since there's no problem with endless break, let's try the next spear technique. Taking advantage of the break, Lu Chen began to study the 5th stage of the god-slaying spear. The 5th stage, floating light spear shadow, was a light-type group attack. The 6th stage, double dragon reincarnation, was a fire-type single-target attack. The 7th stage, proud spear shield, was a purely defensive technique. The power of the 3 spear techniques was not weak, but the difficulty was in adding more elements in the later stages. However, Lu Chen had the Jiutian Eternal Star. With his foundation, it was not difficult for him to master it. The only regret was that after mastering these 3 moves, Lu Chen tried to attack the Fisher World, but he still could not split it open. The 8th stage, Soaring Heaven Massacre, requires the comprehension of the War God Spear Dao. I can't cultivate it at the moment. Lu Chen frowned. He had comprehended spear intent and was nearing completion, but he had not touched spear Dao yet. It seems that Soaring Heaven Massacre is a qualitative change. Maybe I can get out of here after mastering this move. It's just that I haven't comprehended spear Dao yet, so I can't cultivate it at the moment. I'll comprehend something else first. Lu Chen could only use the Ice Fire Mystic Ice Sword and Demon Abyss, but he could not use them as he wished. The root cause was that he did not have a deep enough understanding of Sword Dao. No wonder I don't have as much advantage as before. If I can comprehend the so-called Sword Dao and Spear Dao, my strength might increase greatly. Lu Chen cultivated alone and did not feel bored at all. Instead, he enjoyed it. The pressure here was immense, but the benefits of cultivating under such pressure were obvious. After familiarizing himself with the 5th to 7th stage of the god-slaying spear, Lu Chen finally attacked the 8th stage. Spear Dao. Lu Chen recalled Pangu's ability to control time and space. Pangu said that it was a kind of heavenly Dao comprehension, a state stronger than intent techniques. Chapter 1489. The last time Bai Yi heard news of Lu Chen was when he left the Holy Land mine. In the next 3 years, he actually lost track of Lu Chen's whereabouts. In the past 3 years, Lu Chen had been cultivating in the space-time crack. The 4 beasts followed little golden carp to various worlds where strange beasts roamed. In the space-time crack, 3 years was 45 years. This was not the space of consciousness. Not only that, but there was also a huge pressure. In the extraterrestrial Divine Devil Palace, Lu Chen had just come out from the 3rd level. The crack could not stop Lu Chen from entering the extraterrestrial Divine Devil Palace. The opponents on this level had reached the level of a 9-star lower god. However, now that Lu Chen had reached the level of a 5-star human emperor, it was naturally not difficult to win. Old Back said that the treasures on the first 5 levels of the Divine Devil Palace had been taken away. So now, Lu Chen only had some rare materials. Old Back, don't tell me the 4th level is a 9-star middle god. Lu Chen seemed to have found a pattern. Each level of the Divine Devil Palace was a major realm. The 7th level was the Supreme God. You are definitely not a celestial prime war soul. Lu Chen said in a low voice. What kind of opponents are on the 8th and 9th levels of the Divine Devil Palace? Old Back turned his back to Lu Chen as usual. Lu Chen, let me ask you. If you reach the level of a supreme god, will you continue to become stronger? Lu Chen was stunned. After thinking for a while, he said, definitely. I will not stop until I save my father. That's it. Who said that the supreme god is the strongest? Lu Chen frowned. Today, he felt more and more that martial arts were boundless. Chi Mo said, Lu Chen, I didn't expect you to be able to pass through the third level of the Divine Devil Palace in such a short time. It seems that losing to you is not a shameful thing. Lu Chen smiled. Chi Mo, when did you learn to flatter people? By the way, what is the relationship between the extraterrestrial Divine Devil Palace and the extraterrestrial Divine Devil Palace? Lu Chen asked. Old Man faintly said, when you reach outer space, perhaps you will be able to figure it out. Although these treasures don't match the difficulty of passing through the palace, there's nothing you can do about it. Someone has passed through the first few levels, and the treasures of the demonic palace have already been taken away. If you want the best treasures, you should pass through the 6th level as soon as possible. Jiutian's Eternal Star has gained its first magical equipment skill after its upgrade. Take your time to learn it. Alright, it's time for you to leave. Lu Chen nodded and left the demonic palace. The pressure around him was still the same, but Lu Chen was already used to it. He checked the skill that he had obtained after the Jiutian star leveled up. Chaotic Storm. Through the alternation of various elements, it creates a chaotic elemental attack that is difficult to defend against. This effect can be attached to any offensive skill. Hiss, it seems a little strong. Lu Chen thought. In other words, this was an auxiliary skill. When combined with different moves, it would produce different effects. It could be used for group attacks or single attacks. It could even be used to buff Little Beastie and the others. With this buff, his combat power increased by more than just a little. It was not difficult to comprehend the chaotic storm. Lu Chen first tried to use the chaotic storm on the sacred lotus sword heart and summoned a few clones. Every sword aura he swung out instantly turned into a black mist, which was caused by the fusion of various elements. After the sword aura hit the clones, the damage they received was far greater than before. Did it only increase the attack power? The power is smaller than I thought. Lu Chen frowned slightly. When I made my move, I converted about 10 types of elements. If I let the stars of the 9th heaven revolve twice as fast, I can achieve 20 types of elemental changes. Maybe the effect will be better. This time, Lu Chen directly activated his full state and swung his sword again. After the clones were hit, the injured parts were severely distorted and collapsed in a short time. After the sword, the clones dissipated. Instantly. This is just the one sword sacred lotus sword heart. Lu Chen widened his eyes. Damn, this is the true power of the chaotic storm. It's too strong. Lu Chen tried to merge the chaotic storm into the heaven's fury spear. This time, a terrifying turbulence formed in the space, like a tornado sweeping through the entire space. With a thrust of the spear, the space shook. I still can't break open the crack. If I reach the level of a 6-star Renhuang, I should be able to break open this place. However, it's not difficult to increase my realm. I still have a lot of god power stones. If it's not enough, I can reach the level of a 6-star Renhuang after a while of cultivation. However, it's difficult to break open this space with techniques. Then I won't increase my realm. Let's see when I can break the array with techniques. Lu Chen originally wanted to stabilize his foundation, so he was not in a hurry to increase his realm. Lu Chen practiced his techniques madly in this space without heaven and earth. The defense of the space became Lu Chen's best opponent. He swung his spear, swung his sword, improved, and merged the chaotic storm again and again. In order to practice the shield of the proud spear array, he let his doppelgangers attack while he defended himself. In order to increase his attack power, he attacked the space wall countless times. In order to practice his body movement, He used more than 30 doppelgangers to attack while he did not do anything to defend himself. He only dodged with God's arrival. Immersed in cultivation, Lu Chen gradually lost track of how much time had passed in the outside world. On this day, Lu Chen had just opened his eyes, and his mind was still thinking about cultivation. During this period of time, he felt that the space seemed to be more and more unable to withstand his crazy attacks. He had to restrain his strength to avoid shattering the space so quickly. Just as he was about to start practicing, he suddenly received a voice transmission. "Brother Du Kuang, where are you? The 8 supreme gods have opened the passage to the outer space and led the gods to attack, wanting to annex the outer space. However, the power of the alien beasts is too terrifying. The two sides have been fighting for 2 years, and both sides have won and lost. Now, the demons from the outer space have been attracted. Flames of war are everywhere on the alien battlefield, and it's extremely tragic. The situation seems to be a little out of control." It was a message from Nightmare. Lu Chen asked, "Brother Nightmare, where are you?" There was no reply. Not long after, Lu Chen received another message. This time, it was from the 3 elders of the Taoist lineage. "Lu Chen, the plan has changed. The original plan was for you to go to the outer space in 5 years, but now it has to be brought forward. 2 years ago, the 8 supreme gods opened the passage to the outer space. Originally, the gods were unstoppable, swallowing the world. However, as the demons from the outer space entered the battlefield, the war gradually went out of control. Lu Chen, remember, your task is not to participate in the alien battlefield. You have to avoid the battle and find the origin of the heavenly path. You must enter the outer space in 2 months." Lu Chen frowned. The 2 messages in a row were about the alien battlefield. It seemed that there was a big problem there. If the Jyotian was defeated, would Earth be in danger? Anyway, it seemed that it was time for him to leave. 2 months in the outside world, for Lu Chen, there were still 3 years. "I haven't comprehended the spear principle yet, but it seems that it's too late." Lu Chen frowned and said, "I have to become a 6-star human sovereign first." Chapter 1490. 2 months later, a white light suddenly erupted in the sky of the unknown planet, instantly illuminating the entire world. Yu Ming and the others looked up at the sky and saw a white-haired man in golden armor floating in the air. Lu Chen. Yu Ming's eyes widened. You broke the space crack." In an instant, Lu Chen was already in front of Yu Ming. "I could have broken it 10 years ago, but I didn't understand the spear Dao. Have you understood it now?" Lu Chen shook his head. "Not yet, but I don't have time. Let's wait for Xiao Shou and the others to come back and go to outer space immediately." After saying that, Lu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly. Outer space had suddenly changed, and the Jyotian had changed. The world now seemed to be experiencing an unprecedented storm. At the headquarters of the Earth Alliance, the leaders of various countries were gathered here. At the same time, there were 2 acquaintances of Lu Chen here. Yi Fan and Li Shang. "Mr. Yi Fan, are you sure that the Jyotian is at war with outer space? I mean, what exactly is outer space?" Yi Fan said in a deep voice. "I'm not very clear at the moment, but I've received news that the 8th heaven has opened the outer space road, and the gods are fighting with the alien beasts. Originally, the Jyotian gods were unstoppable, but half a year ago, the demons from outer space joined the war, and now the situation is uncertain." "Then, what can we do?" a European leader asked. Yi Fan took a deep breath. "The current situation of the war is still unpredictable. I came to Earth for 2 things. First, Yi Fan took out a shadow stone. This is a high-level shadow stone. There are many shadow stones in the alien battlefield that record the war. At present, many of the shadow stones have been connected. You can use this to see the situation of the alien battlefield. Second, I want to find Master. But Mad God hasn't returned to Earth for several years, the representative of Hua Nation said. Yi Fan said, take me to Marshal Ant Lui. Li Shang also said, Yi Fan is Chen Er's disciple and our friend, I can guarantee this, otherwise I would not have brought him to Earth. Everyone looked at each other, and in the end, they looked at the Great Wall of Iron and Blood. The Great Wall of Iron and Blood thought for a moment, then said, then, I'll get someone to bring you there. Not long after, Yi Fan and Li Shang had already appeared on the streets of Jiang City. Li Muhua drove the military bulletproof car to pick them up. As the car drove along the road, Yi Fan looked at the outside world through the window. Was this Master's hometown? Master said that although his hometown was a technological world, it was very beautiful here. Unfortunately, his master was not here, so he could not show him around. I wonder how Chen is doing in the 8th layer of heaven. Li Shang was somewhat worried. Yi Fan came back to his senses and patted Li Shang's shoulder, don't worry, Senior Li Shang, my master will be fine. Li Shang sighed, Yi Fan, why did the 8 supreme gods open the outer heaven road? Originally, the Jiutian was relatively stable, but now, the situation is getting more and more difficult to control. Yi Fan said faintly, although I'm far from the supreme god realm, if I put myself in their shoes, it's not difficult to guess the reason. Oh. What do you think it is? Their strength can't go any further. Yi Fan replied, the 9 heavens domain has a total of 9 heavens, and they have been trapped in the 8th layer of heaven for who knows how many years. If I were them, I would definitely think of ways to increase my strength and enter the legendary 9th layer of heaven. And if the answer is not in the Jiutian, then it must be in the outer heaven. When Yi Fan said this, Li Shang finally understood. Humans are never satisfied, and those who can fight their way to the supreme god realm are all people who are obsessed with martial arts. How can they be willing to be trapped in the 8th layer of heaven forever? Sigh. Yi Fan sighed, I heard that there is more than one outer heaven demon in the outer heaven. Right now, one outer heaven demon is enough to make all the gods fall into a quagmire. If more outer heaven demons come, then the Jiutian will really change this time. It's a pity that I'm still in the 7th layer of heaven. Even Master can't reach the supreme god realm now. People like us are like a lone boat in the middle of a tsunami, our fate is in the hands of others. Li Shang patted Yi Fan, don't worry, your progress is already very fast. Besides, the 8 supreme gods haven't been defeated yet. Yi Fan nodded, this was the best news at the moment. Yi Fan looked at Li Muhua and suddenly asked, you are Senior Li Muhua? Li Muhua almost spat out a mouthful of blood. It was said that the 2 people he met were both immortals. Especially this Yi Fan, who has reached the level of Sengoku. The whole Earth combined, excluding Lu Chen, is probably not enough to beat this guy. But a Sengoku called me Senior. This is too terrifying. I wouldn't dare, how would Sengoku know a small shrimp like me? Yi Fan cupped his fists and said, Senior Muhua, you are my master's friend, and I often hear my master talk about you. Naturally, you are my senior. Sweat dripped down Li Muhua's forehead. He was a rookie, did he have to be so senior? He was not used to it. Cough, cough, cough. Well, you can just call me Muhua. By the way, I heard the 2 great gods talking about the alien battlefield. Those so-called gods can't win. Yi Fan shook his head. Actually, we just got the news. I guess the pressure of the 8th heaven is too great, and this war affects all the heavens below the Jiutian. That's why we got the news. As for the gods, I haven't seen them before. My current strength is still too weak. This Sengoku is still weak. Li Muhua was speechless. However, if the gods are defeated, does that mean that the earth will be in danger again? Yi Fan said in a low voice, when the nest is overturned, no egg will remain intact. Although the earth has not been swallowed by the Jiutian, since you have a passage to the Jiutian, you have nowhere to run. Li Muhua's heart was heavy. This feeling of not being able to control his own fate was terrible. Soon, the car arrived at the gate of the neighborhood. Of course, this place had become a military base, and Lu Chen's villa was only a small part of the military base. Lu Yi's house is in front. The car stopped in front of the villa. Li Muhua brought Li Shang and Yi Fan to the small courtyard in front of the villa. At this time, the courtyard was surrounded by armed soldiers. After all, Lu Yi's safety was the most important thing. Lu Yi had already received the news and was waiting in the courtyard. When she saw Li Muhua and the others, she came out to welcome them. Brother Muhua, Yi Fan, and Uncle Li Shang. Yi Fan looked around and narrowed his eyes. Uncle Lu Yi. Have any strangers been looking for you recently? Lu Yi frowned. It's you. Yi Fan's fighting spirit that had just been ignited was immediately deflated. Uncle Lu Yi, I'm Master's disciple. I'm one of us. I'm very sad to hear you say that. I'm talking about other than me. That's not true. Lu Yi thought for a while and said. Yi Fan narrowed his eyes. Could it be that the secret transmission he received was fake? Chapter 1491. After Yi Fan left, the leaders of the various countries turned on the Shadow Stone. The first thing that appeared on the Shadow Stone was a map that confused everyone. But soon, a red dot appeared on one of the maps. Look at what's happening there. The Shadow Stone's perspective crossed the galaxy and arrived at a huge planet. When the planet was zoomed in, everyone was dumbfounded when they saw the battle on it. Splitting mountains and splitting the earth with a sword, triggering tsunamis with a punch, and divine beasts are everywhere. A battle of this level is too unbelievable. Yi Fan said that only superior gods in the 8th heaven are qualified to enter the alien battlefield. But why are those dark beasts so strong that they can fight against superior gods? The alien battlefield is actually so terrifying. Without a doubt, Earth was not qualified to participate in a battle of this level. Everyone, if the flames of war spread to the low-level heavenly regions, I'm afraid we won't be able to stop it. Now, I'd like to ask, should these effects be made public on the internet? Someone asked, and everyone fell silent. If it's made public, will it cause global unrest? It's possible. But do we really have to wait for the flames of war to reach our doorsteps before we tell the people everything? Someone expressed a different opinion. Everyone, ever since we came into contact with the 9 heavens, our world has been different from before. Many people at the meeting had different opinions. In the end, everyone looked at the representative of Hua country. Over the years, Hua country's strength had continued to increase rapidly. Even Lu Chen was Chinese. As the world's largest country, Hua country had long become the leader of all the countries on earth. The Great Wall of Iron and Blood could not decide on this matter. Everyone, please wait for 10 minutes. I'll report this to my superiors. The Great Wall of Iron and Blood left hurriedly and found a private room. Sir, this is what happened. Currently, Lu Chen's disciple has given us the film, and the various countries are now divided on whether to make the film public. What do you think? The phone was silent for a moment. Not long after, the voice on the other end sounded. Earth is really weak. The leader's words were indescribably bitter and helpless. However, the other party quickly changed the topic. Great Wall, the most important thing to us Hua country people is the word home. Do you know how many people are risking their lives to cultivate? How many people have given up everything just to protect Earth? Li Shang and the others have exhausted their youth, enduring the humiliation. Many young people cultivate day and night to increase their strength. Great Wall, others say that we are the decision makers. However, the true protectors of Earth are the nameless heroes. We have no right to deprive them of the right to know the truth. The rights of the people should belong to the people. Besides, do you still remember what that person said? This time, we'll let everyone know that danger is right beside us. The Great Wall of Iron and Blood took a deep breath. His leader's words had enlightened him, and the doubts in his heart no longer existed. Yes, Chief, I know what to do. After putting down the phone, the Great Wall of Iron and Blood strode towards the conference room. Everyone, I suggest that we release the footage. The Great Wall of Iron and Blood's voice was incomparably resolute. If these Jyotian gods can defeat the alien beast, then let our next generation, and the generation after that, continue to strive to become stronger. If the alien beasts invade Jyotian, and the flames of war spread to Earth, then we will fight together with everyone. Soon, the Shadow Stone footage appeared on the official website of the Earth Alliance. The horror of the alien battlefield deeply shocked everyone. On the official website of the Jyotian Earth, people were discussing the alien battlefield crazily. Are those the gods of the level 8 heaven? I remember that the invasion of the immortals last time was already despairing enough. This time, it's a battle of gods. Those alien beasts are too terrifying. They can fight with the gods. In a battle of this level, we are just like ants. We can't resist at all. However, soon, the Great Wall of Iron and Blood speech was released on the official website. My compatriots, well. I'm talking about my compatriots from Earth. When you see this footage, you will be extremely shocked. In this regard, I am the same as you. However, the reason why we released these footage and the information we have about the alien battlefield is that we are all members of Earth. In this regard, I am no different from you. There has always been a saying in Jyotian that the human race is one of the weakest races. However, there is one person who has used his strength to tell everyone that this nonsense is nonsense. And I believe that all of you know who this person is. We can't control the direction of the war now. Maybe in a few years, the Earth will be flattened by these powerful creatures. However, if we are given a chance, we will become stronger. If this generation can't do it, then the next generation will do it. If the next generation can't do it, then the next generation will do it. We will let our children and grandchildren no longer feel inferior as humans and depressed as Earthlings. This planet has raised human beings, and we will do everything we can to protect our home. When the video ended, the discussion in the comments section immediately changed. Those who are shouting that there is no way out, shut up. The Earth Alliance has released the footage. It's much better than waiting for the alien beasts to come to your door without you knowing. That's right. The war hasn't even started, and you are already admitting defeat. Trash. If we can have a mad god, we can have a second one. If one generation can't do it, then we will have 10 generations. If 10 generations can't do it, then we will have 100 generations. I like the Earth Alliance. I think it's a good thing to let our children feel a sense of crisis. We also have to cultivate well and be good examples for our children. The expected global uproar did not happen. When it came to the survival of a race, Earthlings were surprisingly united. Of course, with such a big incident, the most popular words in the comments section were Earth War God, Solipsistic, Mad God, Nameless, and Lu Chen. Where was the Mad God now? Martial Ant, has Master not been back for a long time? Yi Fan asked. Louis nodded. That's right. Can you stop calling me Martial Uncle? It sounds weird. Just call me Big Sister Louis. Yes, that's fine too. Yi Fan nodded. However, Yi Fan had a lot on his mind right now. Yi Fan, why are you looking for my brother? Louis asked. Sister Louis. Yi Fan hesitated for a moment and said, I received an anonymous voice transmission earlier. The voice transmission said that there is a treasure on Earth that is very important to master. However, someone has already sneaked into Earth and is looking for this treasure. What? Earth? Louis could not believe it. Yi Fan nodded. If it's a treasure that is very important to master, I think the other party might start with you. No matter what, I must find this treasure before they do. Chapter 1492. Yi Fan was not familiar with Earth, and he was worried about leaving Lu Yi here alone. Therefore, the best way was to let Lu Yi accompany him. Lu Yi was duty-bound to do anything related to her brother. Lu Yi said, "Wait for me. After I send the 2 kids to my husband planet, I will accompany you. Oh, by the way, tell brother Muhua that he has been responsible for my safety. If I leave like this, he will not be able to answer to his superiors." Little Beastie and the others had returned. Little Beastie's voice was deeper than before. It seemed that it was one step closer to the perfect form. Little Originator's attack power was much higher than before. It seemed that it had been beaten up a lot. Little Furball still had not changed much. As for Rhubarb, it seemed that he had given up on cultivation and was enjoying himself with the 3 beasts. Netherworld had repaired the Earth puppet. The Earth Guardian led by Qian Ji could now be used normally. De Zhuang and Marshall did not quarrel with each other. Instead, they looked a little strange. "Seniors, what's wrong with you?" Lu Chen was not used to this. "Well, if you are going to outer space, we will not follow you." "Ah. Seniors, you are not going?" Lu Chen was surprised. "Aren't you going to look after the 2 souls?" Pangu smiled. "We are in the space-time turbulence and are in the 9th heaven. Therefore, it is inconvenient for us to leave." Nine Nether also said, "I used to worry that you would be stupid. But now, it seems that you are not stupid. Therefore, there is nothing for us to worry about. With your growth speed, it is not difficult for you to become a superior god. Besides, you will not suddenly fuse the 2 souls before becoming a superior god. Don't worry. When you return to the space, we will still keep an eye on you." Lu Chen wanted to say that it would be better for them not to keep an eye on him. But on second thought, it was their fault. After everything was ready, Lu Chen took Netherworld and the other 2 to the place where the 3 elders of Taoism were staying. Tai Xing, Xian Zhen, and Chen Daoist saw Lu Chen. They put down their work and were the first to receive him. "Lu Chen, do you know about what happened in outer space?" Tai Xing asked. "Got it," Lu Chen said. "There are too many variables now, so I have to save Mu Sheng as soon as possible." After pondering for a moment, Lu Chen asked, 3 elders, since the battle is now out of control, why haven't the 8 over-gods closed the tunnel?" The 3 old men looked at each other and said, "There is one possibility. They found a way to break through to the 8th heavenly layer. Perhaps, the key to breaking through the 8th heavenly layer lies in the outer space. Therefore, even though the battle situation is getting more and more confusing, they still haven't closed the passage." Lu Chen frowned and said, "In order to break through to the 8th heaven, they don't care about the safety of the myriad races?" The worldly Taoist said, "We don't know, but one thing is for sure. None of the 8 paramount gods mentioned anything about closing the passage. They're all in agreement. So, I'm guessing there's another possibility. They can't close the tunnel. In other words, I can't close the channel in a short period of time." Lu Chen fell into silence for a moment. He was still unfamiliar with the 8 paramount gods, so he could not guess what they were thinking. Xian Zhen said, "Since the battle in outer space concerns the entire Jyotian myriad races, the news of the battle has spread throughout the 9 heavens. Every world is paying attention to this because once the gods are defeated, the fate of the myriad races is obvious." Lu Chen sighed. He could only hope that the gods could win the battle. "Do you want to go back to your world to take a look?" asked the worldly Taoist. Lu Chen fell into silence for a moment and shook his head. "I don't have that much time. Moreover, I haven't done what I promised. It's meaningless for me to go back." He said that he would bring Yao Er's mother back next time, but he had no idea how Mu Sheng was doing. Even if he could bring Mu Xing back, a mother with no memories would be a huge blow to the child. He had to find the nightmare taper. I'm bringing these 3 friends with me, Lu Chen said. Tai Xing looked at Netherworld and the other 2 in surprise. The channel you're going through has existed since ancient times. Ordinary people would not be able to use it. It's fine. I'll think of a way. Just send me there. Since Lu Chen insisted, the 3 Dao elders did not reject Lu Chen's request as long as it did not affect their plans. This is a teleportation talisman. You can go there directly. The worldly Daoist handed over a teleportation talisman. Picking up the teleportation talisman, Lu Chen looked at Netherworld and the other 2. He saw that their eyes were filled with excitement and anticipation, as well as nervousness. Lu Chen smiled. Let's go. Pinching the teleportation talisman, Lu Chen and the others arrived in front of an ancient temple. It looked like an ancient temple, but when they opened the door, they realized that there was only a miniature teleportation gate that was 2 meters tall in the main hall. Not long after, Tai Xing came as well. He pointed at the teleportation gate and said, "You can go through here and reach outer space. I'm not sure where we'll be teleported to. If we're lucky, we should be far away from the main battlefield. However, the beasts are very vigilant now. You still have to be careful." Tai Xing said and gave Lu Chen a shadow stone. This is a map of the regions that have been explored so far. There were wars in these places, so the beasts should still be there. You should try to avoid these worlds. Lu Chen took the shadow stone and nodded. Then, he looked at his friends. "Everyone, let's go." Netherworld and the others followed Lu Chen and stepped into the teleportation gate. After coming out of the teleportation gate, Lu Chen looked at the barren world and was excited. This is outer space. There were volcanoes, deserts, and gales everywhere. It was like a fortress. However, the pressure in this world could not be compared to the spatial rift. Lu Chen could not feel any gravity. Wow, what a strong aura of death. Netherworld took a deep breath and felt the smell of corpses in the soil. What happened to this planet before? Lu Chen took out the shadow stone and matched it with his location. He found that he was not on any of the battleground planets. Fortunately, we're quite far from the battleground. Lu Chen said, this might be caused by the beasts killing each other. Since they were in outer space, Lu Chen summoned Rhubarb. When Rhubarb came out, he took a deep breath and said with an intoxicated expression, "Wow, the smell of home. The spiritual energy here is called spiritual energy." Lu Chen smiled. "Rhubarb, do you know this place?" Rhubarb looked around and looked at the location shown on the shadow stone. He frowned and said, "This place should not be near Jiutian, but I'm not sure where exactly. Outer space is boundless. There are so many planets and worlds. How can I know all of them? However, judging from the approximate location of this planet and the current ecological situation, this should not be a planet that gave birth to beasts. It should have been ransacked by beasts." Lu Chen asked in surprise, "What exactly is an otherworldly beast? Aren't you an alien beast?" Big Yellow said, "How can I explain this? I can only say that there are many kinds of alien beasts. Among them, the most powerful and the craziest ones come from. In the words of some technological world, it is, the dark universe. As for me, I'm not much different from you. It's just that I'm from the Datengu clan of the outer world, and you belong to the inner world of Jiutian. If we encounter a beast like me, although the other party will not give us a good time, they will not fight to the death. But if we encounter a dark beast, oh, I forgot to tell you. The exotic beasts that I mentioned before are called dark beasts. They're nurtured by darkness, and every dark beast will destroy the planet that nurtured them after they reach adulthood because that planet contains the energy that they need to grow quickly. If we encounter one, there are only 2 possibilities. Either you die or it dies. Chapter 1493. This planet was lifeless, but for Netherworld and the others, it was the best place for them to cultivate. Lu Chen summoned Ten-Winged and found a withered forest, which was the best place they could find. Here, Lu Chen skillfully set up a simple camp. You guys cultivate here first. Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on you, Lu Chen said as he busied himself. Bone Demon lowered her head and said shyly, well. Big Brother Kwang, you can patrol around. I don't want you to see me cultivating, Lu Chen smiled. Okay, I'll let Little Beast and the others guard the surroundings. I'll go patrol around. Rhubarb and Furball left with Lu Chen for the time being. Little Beast and Originator were in charge of guarding, while Netherworld and the others began their own cultivation. This planet was much bigger than Earth, but the environment was completely incomparable. Withered bones, rotten wood, and dirty mud could be seen everywhere. There was no trace of life at all. When he was bored, Lu Chen asked Rhubarb, what was your previous level of strength in outer space? I commanded an army of 1,000,000 and dominated a region, Rhubarb said. If compared to the Jotian, I should be considered a relatively strong main god. Lu Chen glanced at Rhubarb. Even though its appearance was much more majestic than before, he still felt that it was more suitable to be a cheerleader. However, since the Jotian gods couldn't leave Jotian before, why did you have a conflict with them? Lu Chen asked. Rhubarb shook its head. Boss, your world was not originally in Jotian. It should be considered a part of outer space, but Jotian connected you to Jotian through a login. Once such a connection is created, it's impossible for you to break free from it now. Jotian has countless tentacles like this that help it expand wildly. Many of the worlds under my jurisdiction were devoured by the Jotian in this way. Tell me, as the Dark Devil Sovereign, how could I possibly sit by and do nothing? Speaking of the past, Rhubarb felt somewhat regretful. He sighed, I was too rash. I was too eager to reclaim my lost territory and rushed into the Jotian. I was suppressed by the sovereigns here and ended up in this state. The little furball lay on top of Rhubarb's head and giggled. It didn't believe that Rhubarb could be so brave. Back to the topic, Lu Chen sat next to a dead tree and asked, Rhubarb, do you know where the nightmare taper is? Rhubarb lay next to Lu Chen and yawned loudly. It said lazily, the 3 Tao elders asked you to look for the nightmare taper. It seems like it might be one of the rare creatures that can travel through Jotian and outer space at the same time. However, this fellow relies on eating dreams to elevate its ability. It's unbelievable just thinking about it. I guess you can only see it in your dreams. Lu Chen looked at the little furball. Little furball, can you eat dreams? The little furball looked at Lu Chen blankly as if it was thinking about whether dreams could be eaten. Why hadn't it thought of that before? Lu Chen thought about it and said, if you want to fish, you'll need bait. Although there are dreams, everyone has them. It's too difficult to lure the nightmare taper here. Rhubarb suddenly looked up and said, oh, right. Boss, there's a galaxy illusion in outer space. It said that those who enter will fall asleep. To the nightmare taper, that should be the place with the most food. Lu Chen's eyes widened. There's such a place. Where's that place? It's in the Void Heaven Star Zone. How do we get there? My subordinates used to rely on dimensional talismans and dimensional portals. However, you don't have those now, so, use God's arrival. Big Yellow said, Boss, the effect of God's descent should be enough to allow you to jump to a planet. In outer space, whether it's fighting, chasing, or, especially escaping, it's extremely important. Try jumping to the opposite satellite. Lu Chen looked at the small disc-shaped planet in the sky. His head buzzed a little. Jumping planets. In the past, he had used dimensional portals and clones to jump planets during the human guardian battle. However, this time, he needed to jump planets directly with his eyes. Boss, the key to jumping planets is the control of distance. The trick is to sense the spiritual energy emitted by the planet. This is definitely not difficult for you. This satellite is very close. Try a few more times and get the feeling. Lu Chen nodded. Since Netherworld and the rest were cultivating, he might as well try jumping planets. Will I freeze to death if I jump into space? Boss, you didn't train your body for nothing. Our bodies have the protective effect of spiritual energy. There's no need to worry about low temperature, low pressure, or lack of oxygen. Lu Chen nodded. He had been to many worlds, but he was still a little nervous about jumping planets for the first time. Lu Chen stood up and took a deep breath. After carefully sensing it, Lu Chen discovered that sensing spiritual energy wasn't a simple matter. The spiritual energy in the surroundings was mixed. It was easier said than done to separate and distinguish the spiritual energy coming from planets hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. Rhubarb, the spiritual energy in the surroundings is too mixed, boss, focus. Sense everything carefully. Lu Chen frowned slightly and carefully sensed everything. He closed his eyes and sensed everything purely with spiritual energy. After standing in place for more than 2 hours, Lu Chen gradually entered the state. Reality observation. In this lifeless world, countless threads of spiritual energy filled the surrounding space, entangling, fusing, splitting, and reacting with each other. Among the countless threads, each one had its own characteristics. They were similar but not completely identical. Celestial Demon Observation Eye. Lu Chen activated the Celestial Demon Observation Eye. All of the threads became even clearer. At this moment, Lu Chen seemed to have returned to the heaven-mending illusion realm and forgotten his own existence. He looked at everything in the world purely from the perspective of the divine sky-mending stone. There was a saying in Jiutian, everything in the world has spiritual energy. Even the soil, stones, and even dust had their own spiritual energy. After some time, Rhubarb and the little furball had fallen asleep. Suddenly, Lu Chen frowned and shouted, "God descends." This shout scared Rhubarb and he quickly got up. However, when Rhubarb opened his eyes, he saw that Lu Chen had suddenly disappeared. No way, he learned it in just a few hours. Rhubarb's eyes widened and he hurriedly looked at the satellite in the sky. Unfortunately, he could not see Lu Chen now. Lu Chen stood on this satellite and looked at the earthy gray planet above his head. He was extremely excited. As the saying goes, when the conditions are right, success comes naturally. He had cultivated God descends countless times in the Fisher world, and it was enough to support him to perform a planet jump. The level of spiritual energy also allowed him to successfully capture the spiritual energy of this satellite. I moved over from that planet. Lu Chen could not suppress his excitement at this moment. Ha 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 ha. This feeling is amazing. Then, Lu Chen looked at another star. Let's go to that planet and have a look. Chapter 1494. After encountering experts in outer space, the intensity of the battle was no longer the same as before. Planet jumping was the foundation of battle. A month later, Lu Chen finally found his way back. When he stood on this planet again, he found that it seemed a little different. There's some life in this world. Lu Chen looked at the new buds on the ground in surprise. After returning to the camp, Netherworld and the other two had stopped cultivating. Lone Quang, we've been looking for you. We've finished cultivating, so we can go now. Netherworld looked much more energetic than before. So fast. Lu Chen was surprised. Withered Claw smiled. Hee, we used to be 2-star lower gods. Although our realms have dropped, we still have the means. Bone Demon said, let's absorb the death energy first and then slowly refine it later. This will save us some time. Brother Quang, where are we going next? Lu Chen said, I've already checked out the surrounding situation. There are a few planets nearby that I think are suitable for you to cultivate. I'll take you there. The battles in the alien battlefield became more and more frequent. The battle between gods could easily destroy planets. More and more gods were joining the battle of the century. Just as the two sides were in a deadlock, the second alien demon joined the battle. At the same time, the 8 supreme gods of Jyotian did not appear. All the battles were led by the master gods. The 3 elders of the Taoist faction had just watched a fierce battle. The alien beast and the Jyotian gods each had 500 people. 7 or 8 planets were destroyed, and both sides suffered great losses. Suddenly, a supreme god from outer space joined the battle, and the situation instantly became one-sided. Of the 500 gods, only a little more than 100 escaped. If the battle continues like this, the Jyotian will not be able to withstand it. Tai Xing shook his head. At this time, the 8 supreme gods still haven't closed the channel. The worldly Taoist said indifferently, if we can find a way to reach the 9th heaven, I think it's reasonable to bet on the fate of all the worlds in the 8th heaven. Since the birth of the Jyotian, no one knew what the 9th heaven was like. Overgods are already at a high level, but they are still stuck at the 8th level, unable to break through the final barrier. Is it because the overgods aren't strong enough? Which of these 8 people isn't a transcendent existence that can cover the sky with one hand and dominate a region? But, the experts of ancient times have been trapped in the 8th heaven. What kind of shocking secret is there in Jyotian? Xian Zhen's expression did not change. Judging from the behavior of the 8 supreme gods, it is highly likely that the method to break through lies beyond the heavens. However, I wonder who among the 8 supreme gods will be able to obtain this great opportunity. In the current situation, even the gods of the 8th heaven were like a lone boat in the sea, let alone the other worlds. Over the past few days, the people on Earth had witnessed many deity-level battles, and they were all shocked by such terrifying battles. Even planets were destroyed in the battle between the gods. This was the power of a god. If a deity or an extraterrestrial beast were to invade Earth, there would be no need for an army of 1,000,000 immortals. One person could destroy Earth. Did you see that? The planets are jumping around so easily. Is this the strength of a late-stage deity? He is so strong. Recently, the gods have lost more than they have won in the alien battlefield. If this continues, I'm afraid they won't be able to stop those extraterrestrial beasts. Didn't they say that there are super strong deities among the gods? Why haven't they made a move yet? I'm so anxious. Even the mad god can't fight a battle of this level. It has only been a few years since the mad god resisted the army of immortals. It was not that the people on Earth had forgotten Lu Chen's earth-shattering battle a few years ago, but the battle that they were witnessing now was far beyond their imagination. For the gods, a few years was negligible. This kind of battle had lasted for 3 years. As time went by, the people on Earth also received more information about the 8th heaven from the human race's galaxy server forum. The gods were also divided into 5 levels: inferior god, intermediate god, superior god, king god, and supreme god. Those who could participate in the alien battlefield were at least superior gods. However, in the past 3 years, there had been countless battles, big and small, but they had never seen the 8 supreme gods appear. On the other hand, on the side of the extraterrestrial beasts, 4 extraterrestrial demons had already joined the battle. Now, the Jyotian gods had few victories, and their defense line was getting closer and closer to the alien passage. Every day, there was new bad news. The pressure of being slaughtered at any time was like a huge stone pressing on people's hearts, and it was getting more and more obvious. Just as everyone felt that death was getting closer and closer, a super battle of 2,000 people broke out recently. It was unknown how many worlds were paying attention to this battle. Yi Fan, who was looking for treasures on Earth, and Lu Yi also saw this battle on the huge screen in the living room of a city. The battle was about to start. The moment it started, the unlucky planet was directly destroyed by the terrifying skills of both sides. The battlefield was directly transferred to space. The flames of war spread rapidly, and the surrounding planets were destroyed one after another. Just when people thought that the Jyotian gods were going to face another tragic end, a white light flashed in the starry sky, and then a man in a white robe appeared on the battlefield. This man was from the myriad spirit tribe, and his main cultivation was sword spirit. He stabbed out with his sword, and a white light flashed, overshadowing the light of the stars, and it shone brightly. The sword traveled thousands of miles, and it directly exploded in the midst of the army of extraterrestrial beasts. Countless extraterrestrial beasts died tragically under this sword. Then, like a shooting star, he shot into the enemy's formation and went straight for the strongest supreme being of the enemy. The two sides only met face to face, and the supreme being was killed by the white-robed man's sword. The gods participating in the battle shouted, "Supreme Spiritual God," in unison, and their morale soared. The Jyotian gods joined forces to launch a counterattack, and the situation was instantly reversed. The three elders of the Tao faction looked at each other when they saw this scene. "It's the Supreme Spiritual God, Kong-gu. His strength has increased. That sword has already surpassed the scope of the sword Tao. That's the origin of the heavenly Tao. He succeeded. He really succeeded. He can enter the Jyotian by prying into the heavenly Tao." No, it's still too early to say that. Unless Kong-gu has the strength to kill the extraterrestrial demon, he can't enter the 9 heavens. If he could enter the Jyotian, he would have already entered by now. The worldly Taoist's eyes widened, and he said excitedly, "Even if spiritual god Kong-gu can't enter the Jyotian, at least they have found a way to become stronger." Tai Xing heaved a sigh of relief. At least spiritual god Kong-gu's appearance has relieved the pressure on the gods. It won't be easy for the extraterrestrial demon to defeat him. In a different world, millions of corpses of beasts were piled up like mountains, and countless beast cores were gathered in front of an altar. The pillars of light around the level 9 altar shot into the sky. On the altar, the virtual image of a fairy-like woman in light clothes appeared. She looked at the beasts kneeling in front of her and said calmly, "Do you want guidance or power?" Chapter 1495. The leader of the mutated beasts looked around, afraid that what happened last time would happen again. Fortunately, that despicable brat who rushed to make a wish shouldn't appear this time. "We want to revive the mad demon war god. We want revenge." The elf's expression didn't change at all as he said, "You've decided to revive him at all costs." "Yes, a super expert has appeared among the Jyotian gods. We must revive the mad demon at all costs. Since this is your decision, then let that guy return from the endless hell." The earth trembled as strange phenomena occurred. The entire world was waiting for the former protector to return to this world in a different form. With a loud bang, a black shadow rushed out from the ground. This was a huge mutated beast. Its entire body emitted a dense black aura. Its face was ferocious, and its eyes were blood red. Its pupils looked like they were about to split open. It bared its teeth, revealing several rows of sharp fangs. This mutated beast's form was completely different from the other mutated beasts in this world. "It's the mad demon war god." The leader's eyes burned as he prostrated himself on the ground. "Demon-sealing war god, please avenge our clan." The mad demon's hands formed into claws as he roared towards the sky. A beam of spiritual energy shot out from his mouth and into the sky. The mountains collapsed, the earth cracked, and the clouds scattered. At this moment it was as if the world couldn't restrain the power of this demon. In the next second, he rushed to the ground and crazily devoured his compatriots. None of these mutated beasts fled. They willingly waited to be devoured by the mad demon war god. Seeing this scene, 2 drops of tears fell from the leader's eyes. "Mad demon, in order to protect this world, you fell into darkness. You sealed yourself, but your strength is still growing crazily. In this cruel world, we are willing to give up everything we have. We only hope that the mad demon war god will return to this world and avenge all our dead compatriots. Come on, devour me and become stronger. Then, go and destroy the Jyotian. With a roar, a black shadow flashed past. Where the leader was, only 4 limbs were left on the ground. At the Jyotian defense line, a white shadow flashed past. These high gods couldn't even see who it was. A moment later, a white robe stood in midair. The white robe descended, and the myriad gods knelt before it. Greetings to the supreme spiritual god. Kongu clasped his hands behind his back and said coldly, I have peeked into the origin of the heavenly Tao. Although I have yet to cultivate it to the greater success stage, all of you have already seen its power. The pinnacle of your pursuit is the outer heavens. Defeat the outer heavens beasts, and you will be able to ascend to the top of the 9 heavens. The eyes of the gods below instantly widened. Everyone's eyes were filled with incomparable fanaticism. He had already become a deity, a high god, a sovereign, and was only 1 step away from the 9th heaven. After thousands of years of cultivation, who would want to stop at the 8th heavenly layer? Everyone wanted to go to the most mysterious layer of heaven in Jyotian. Was that the peak of martial arts? We will fight to the death. The people below shouted in unison, their voices shaking the universe. The Jyotian gods were in high spirits. At the same time, Lu Chen was jumping between planets with Netherworld and the others. In 3 years, Netherworld and the other 2 had already reforged their fate bones and regained their human appearances. Now, each of them had 5 fate bones, and their strength had reached the level of a mid-god. During this time, Lu Chen had also been moving towards the Void Heaven Star River. After a long period of training, Lu Chen had gone from being able to jump between planets to being able to jump longer distances. While Netherworld and the others were cultivating, Lu Chen was still strengthening his proficiency in God's advent. Lone Tyrant, we're already close to the Void Heaven Star River. Rhubarb looked up at the stars in the sky. It's in that direction. Lu Chen nodded. Netherworld, Withered Claw, Bone Demon, I don't know what's in the Void Heaven Star River. You guys stay here and cultivate. I'll go take a look. Lone Tyrant, didn't Rhubarb say that once we enter the Void Heaven Star River, we'll fall into a deep sleep and never wake up? Lu Chen frowned. We've passed by some planets with high-level creatures before, but no one knows about nightmare tapirs. They don't even know what they look like. So, I thought about it. Perhaps we can only meet nightmare tapirs in our dreams. If I were a nightmare tapir, I'd definitely come to a place like the Void Heaven Star River. So, I have to give it a try. But Brother Quan, isn't it too dangerous? Bone Demon's eyes were filled with worry. She really wanted to stop Lu Chen from going. Lu Chen smiled. In this world, no matter what problem it is, there's always a solution, isn't there? Moreover, Mu Sheng has helped me many times. She's also Yao Er's mother. I lost my mother when I was very young. I won't let Yao Er end up like me. It seemed like Lu Chen had already made up his mind. Lu Chen handed the star map that the Dao faction's 3 elders had given him to Netherworld. Netherworld, Withered Claw, Bone Demon, it's a pleasant surprise to be able to meet all of you on the 8th heaven. I'm happy to see all of you become more powerful. The war between Jyotian and outer space is still spreading. I think it'll affect the nearby areas very soon. If I don't return within 2 years, you guys can return to Jyotian through the dimensional portals set up along the way. Lone Tyrant. Lu Chen did not wait for Netherworld to finish speaking. He leaped and disappeared from where he was. There were tears in Bone Demon's beautiful eyes. Brother Quang, although I know you won't like me, it's my honor to have met you. Brother Quang, you must come back within 2 years. Netherworld sighed. It was embarrassing to say that they were middle-level gods now, but they could not complete a planet jump like Lu Chen. Perhaps that was the reason why only high gods could participate in the war in outer space. Good brother, we'll wait for your return. Half a month later, Lu Chen arrived at a planet at the edge of the virtual heaven galaxy. As soon as he entered the galaxy, Lu Chen felt an inexplicable sense of sleepiness. What the hell, how many years has it been since I felt sleepy? Lu Chen struggled to open his eyes. It's best to go deeper. When Lu Chen looked up to choose his next foothold, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. There were pitifully few planets in the virtual heaven galaxy. Apart from some small planets in the periphery, it was very difficult to find spiritual energy from other planets. He could feel a large amount of external spiritual energy coming from the surroundings, but it was very weak. If he was not careful, he would not notice it. Lu Chen thought for a moment and said helplessly, "It seems that I can only directly teleport in outer space." This time, God's descent did not have a planet as a foothold. Lu Chen was suddenly in outer space. When Lu Chen was about to jump again, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. A large number of corpses, of various races were floating around him. They numbered in the tens of thousands, no, it could be 100,000, a million, or even 10 million. Because there were such floating corpses everywhere. Everyone was floating in outer space, allowing their bodies to drift freely in the sky. They all had different expressions. Some were serene, some were in pain, some were crying, some were smiling. Suddenly, an extremely strong sense of sleepiness overcame him. In his half-asleep state, Lu Chen heard a voice. "Since you've come to the virtual heaven galaxy, you must have come to deliver food to me. Why are you still unwilling to sleep? Don't resist, you're already very tired. Just let yourself sleep. Traceless dream, dream of 1,000 years." Chapter 1496. Lu Chen could no longer lift his eyelids. The exhaustion was unprecedentedly intense, and his brain almost stopped working. 1,000-year dream? Could it be that he would experience a 1,000-year dream if he fell asleep? Lu Chen's subconscious told him that he must not fall asleep. Just as Lu Chen's eyes were about to close, Lu Chen wanted to tear open the corner of his mouth to wake himself up a little. "I can't sleep yet." Lu Chen lifted his hand and took out Wuxia. However, the sword had turned dim at the moment. Could it be that Wuxia had fallen asleep? Lu Chen seemed to have used all the strength in his body to stab the sword into his thigh. The intense pain made Lu Chen finally regain consciousness for a short time. After holding on for less than 3 seconds, Lu Chen's eyelids began to droop again. "No, I can't take it anymore. I'm so sleepy." He had to think of something. Did he have any cultivation method that could resist his sleepiness? He had never heard of such an attack before. Then, he would let himself go crazy. Inner demon. Lu Chen quickly entered the inner demon state. As expected, the insanity of the inner demon state could slightly resist the sleepiness. "Who are you? Are you the nightmare taper?" Lu Chen roared, "Come out and see me. I need to talk to you." The voice came again. "Many people want to see me. There are many around you. Unfortunately, they can't hold on until they see me. Where are you?" Lu Chen's eyes widened. "You'll see me if you go deeper into the void galaxy. Don't blame me for not reminding you that the deeper you go into the void galaxy, the easier it is for you to fall asleep. If you can't hold on until you see me, there's no need for us to meet." Since he knew where the nightmare taper was, Lu Chen used God's arrival and flashed toward the void galaxy. After just one jump, Lu Chen realized that the number of people sleeping around him had decreased by a few hundred times. There were only a few people floating around. At that moment, Lu Chen was indeed feeling drowsy. This won't do. I have to let the inner demon state last a little longer. Otherwise, I definitely won't be able to resist it if it goes any deeper. After waiting for more than 10 seconds, Lu Chen was still awake. Hang in there. I promised that I'll find Mu Sheng. Lu Chen gritted his teeth. Fortunately, the strong drowsiness had suppressed the effects of the inner demon for a long time, and the inner demon's effect had counteracted a lot of the drowsiness. Seeing that he had adapted, Lu Chen jumped twice and arrived at the core area of the Void Heaven Celestial River. Nightmare Taper, I'm here. Where are you? Come out now. Lu Chen panted heavily, but his eyelids were struggling. It seemed like he could not hold on any longer. At this moment, that voice sounded again. Interesting, you actually managed to hold on until now. Look around you. There's no one else around. Lu Chen did not have the cultivation technique to take care of others. He was about to be unable to hold on any longer. Nightmare Taper, I'm looking for you. A gigantic beast appeared before Lu Chen as soon as he was done speaking. The gigantic beast looked like a leopard, but it had an elephant's trunk and a lion's mane on its head. It was so massive that it was comparable to a small satellite. It's so big. Lu Chen was shocked. What kind of creature could grow to the size of a satellite? Divine demon fate-defying is extraordinary indeed. The Nightmare Taper's huge brown eyes looked at Lu Chen with interest. Otherwise, you definitely wouldn't have come here. Lu Chen's drowsiness disappeared as soon as the Nightmare Taper appeared. Lu Chen got out of the inner demon state immediately while he was still awake. Tell me. Why are you looking for me? Lu Chen finally woke up from his drowsiness and said to the Nightmare Taper while clasping his fists, Senior Nightmare Taper, I have a friend in the Jiutian whose memory has been erased. Someone said that you can help her recall her memory. The Nightmare Taper's solemn voice was heard. What you think about in the day, you dream at night. Dreams are the embodiment of one's subconscious. If all the dreams are connected, although it's not the same as memory, it can help one recall their memory. Whether it's the Jiutian or outer space doesn't make a difference to me. Of course, I can help your friend recall her memory. To be exact, she shouldn't be a friend but the mother of your child. However, this doesn't benefit me at all. Why should I help you? Lu Chen asked immediately, what do you want? I'm the Nightmare Taper. What I need is only dreams. Lu Chen was stunned for a moment and looked troubled. Well. Haven't you been devouring dreams? How can I help you then? The Nightmare Taper's eyes curved slightly. Dreams are different. Take the dreams that you usually have for example. They don't have much effect on the growth of my ability. If you agree to sleep in the virtual galaxy for 1,000 years, I can help you. Lu Chen frowned hard. Senior Nightmare Taper, the Jiutian is fighting outer space now. The 8 supreme gods are in outer space. This is the best chance for me to save Mu Sheng. If I really sleep for 1,000 years, it'll be too late by then. The Nightmare Taper's tone turned cold. You want me to help you but you refuse to agree to my condition. Tell me, why should I help you for no reason? Can't you change your condition? Lu Chen asked with a frown. No. The Nightmare Taper answered firmly. Lu Chen's gaze turned cold. If that's the case, I'm afraid we'll have to use force. Use force? The Nightmare Taper's expression became rather unnatural. Nobody had ever thought of using force on him since he was young. Speaking of which, most people would not dare to provoke him. After all, they would be in eternal slumber before they even entered the virtual galaxy. Ha, ha. What's wrong, Lu Chen? Do you want to fight me? The Nightmare Taper's laughter was rather forced, but he soon got into the mood. He shouted in a deep voice, Lu Chen, you've got guts. Even the supreme demon from outer space can't do anything to me. Do you think you can threaten me? I'd advise you to be more careful. I don't know if I can threaten you or not, but I must restore Mu Xing's memory. Lu Chen quickly activated his inner demon mode after saying that. He did not want the nightmare taper to make him fall asleep with a dream. God's arrival. Lu Chen quickly activated his skill and stuck close to the nightmare taper. Furball, I'm counting on you. Lu Chen tossed the furball to the nightmare taper after saying that. The nightmare taper's body was extremely huge, but it did not seem to be able to move. It watched the furball land on its body helplessly. The furball did not care whether it was the nightmare taper or not. It pounced and bit it directly. The nightmare taper shrieked in agony. Ah! The god-slaying rat. It can actually bite my body directly. The furball was clearly very upset when it saw that the nightmare taper still had the strength to speak. It enlarged and bit down again. Ah! Lu Chen, you actually dare to make a move on me? Do you know who I am? I'll make you and the god-slaying rat wake up in nightmares every day. Ah! Lu Chen had initially planned to fight, but he did not expect the nightmare taper to not know how to fight even though it was huge. Even the way it threatened was surprisingly weak. It was like hitting someone and the other party said that he would draw a circle to curse him. It did not hurt at all. The nightmare taper doesn't know how to fight. Lu Chen was in slight disbelief. It seemed like the nightmare taper was very intimidating. Lu Chen thought about it again and immediately realized that he was not dreaming. The nightmare taper was just a divine beast that lived by devouring dreams. It was indeed very powerful. If not for the fact that Lu Chen had the divine demon lotus heart, he would not even have seen the nightmare taper. However, when it came to fighting, logically speaking, the nightmare taper should be considered the most powerful divine beast with such a gigantic body and having devoured so many dreams. However, no one had ever heard of how powerful the nightmare taper was. There were no battle records of the nightmare taper. In that case, it was possible that the nightmare taper did not know how to fight at all. Since the nightmare taper was a real species, it seemed to be the same to the little furball. The nightmare taper ate dreams. Although the little furball could not eat dreams, the nightmare taper was food. Little furball, it said that it wants to haunt us with nightmares. Lu Chen shouted and reminded it. The little furball was upset and began to gnaw on the nightmare taper's body wildly. Ah! Lu Chen, you're the first person who dared to attack me. Damn it, get this thing off me. Lu Chen, I beg you. Ah! Lu Chen, I take back what I said earlier. I promise you. Chapter 1497. The nightmare taper spat out a crystal ball that flew to Lu Chen slowly. This is what you wanted. Get the god-slaying rat out now. Lu Chen looked at the crystal ball and said in his deep voice, you should know that it can find you even if you hide at the end of the world after being bitten by the furball. The nightmare taper heard the threat in Lu Chen's words and said immediately, I won't risk my life because of this little dream. Lu Chen nodded and called the furball back. The furball followed behind Lu Chen and left with Lu Chen. At that moment, Lu Chen stopped in his tracks. He frowned slightly at the furball. The furball stared at Lu Chen strangely with its little eyes. Lu Chen's frown grew deeper and deeper. Subsequently, Lu Chen turned around and looked at the nightmare taper. So, all of this is a dream. The nightmare taper lifted its head to look at Lu Chen. A moment later, the nightmare taper burst into laughter all of a sudden. Ha 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 ha. Lu Chen, you found out. That's strange. How did you find out that this is a dream? Lu Chen said coldly, the furball is very lazy. It won't walk if it doesn't have to. Rhubarb, Little Beast, and Originator are its mounts. Moreover, it doesn't look like it's reluctant to eat. In the past, it would grumble whenever I asked it to leave someone behind. But this time, it didn't hesitate at all. Most importantly, everything seems to be going too smoothly. Ha 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 ha. The nightmare taper no longer looked as weak as before. Lu Chen, I've really underestimated you. People rarely question whether they're in a dream or not when they're in a dream. They won't suspect anything that doesn't make sense. But you can notice such tiny details. Do you know that you'll never see me again if you've noticed it a little later? That way, you'll be like everyone else, forever slumbering in the void of stars. Lu Chen also felt a lingering fear in his heart. If he hadn't remembered Rhubarb's words, he wouldn't have suspected that this was a dream. Rhubarb had said that it had never heard of anyone encountering a nightmare taper. Perhaps one could only encounter one in a dream. When did I fall asleep? Lu Chen asked. The nightmare taper smiled lightly. Before you met me. It's true that I'm not good at fighting, but I've been able to survive for so long. If I didn't have any tricks up my sleeve, I would have been killed long ago. Lu Chen sucked in a breath of cold air. Without him knowing, he had already fallen into a trap. Although the nightmare taper was not good at fighting, it was the most terrifying opponent in another sense. However, to my surprise, the nightmare taper proceeded to say, apart from Mu Xing's dream, you didn't ask for anything else. I'm curious. Aren't you interested in what you've been looking for? If you investigate all the dreams that I've devoured, you should be able to find out more about what you want to know. Lu Chen said calmly, dreams are too mysterious. If it's not your own dream, you won't be able to tell if it's real or fake when you check someone else's dream. Just like when I check Mu Xing's dream. Apart from what we've experienced, I can't confirm which are dreams from her memory and which are illusions. Moreover, I'm asking for Mu Xing's dream. It's too much for you. I'll find out what I want to know myself. The nightmare taper stopped smiling and looked at Lu Chen with its huge eyes. You're the emperor indeed. You're different from the rest. I've seen the greed of these creatures in the void of stars. There aren't many people as rational as you. Since you found out that you're in a dream, you'll wake up soon. The nightmare taper spat a luminous pearl out of its mouth as it spoke. This is what you want. Get Mu Xing to consume the dream, and everything in the past will replay in her head. As for whether she can retrieve her memory through the dream, it'll depend on whether she cares enough about the past. Just like what you said, the dream can only help her to retrieve her memory. It's not the real memory. Lu Chen took the crystal ball in surprise. This isn't another dream, is it? Ha ha ha, a dream within a dream. It's indeed a game that I like to play. However, since you've seen through the dream, the foundation of the dream world has collapsed. There's no need for the game to continue. The nightmare taper before him began to blur gradually. Oh yeah, Lu Chen, since you didn't kill me in your dream, I'll give you a small gift. A terrifying creature has awakened in outer space. It has no rationality, and it's extremely bloodthirsty. It'll be a disaster when it appears in the alien battlefield. Lu Chen's eyes widened. Who are you talking about? You've heard of it. It should have awakened 20 years ago, but you ruined it. The nightmare taper's image disappeared as soon as it was done speaking, and everything around him collapsed. Lu Chen woke up abruptly and realized that he was standing on a planet. Is this the planet that I landed on when I first came to the void of stars? Lu Chen was completely dumbstruck. In other words, he had fallen asleep when he was still at the outermost region of the void of stars. He had been fighting the urge to fall asleep since then, but it was all in a dream. It felt like he could not get out of bed in the morning, but he dreamt that he got out of bed, washed his face, and brushed his teeth. Damn, that's terrifying. Lu Chen looked at his right hand immediately. At the moment, he was holding a crystal ball in his right hand that was shining faintly. Mu Xing's dream. Lu Chen's eyes widened. It's a good thing that I got it. Lu Chen put away the crystal ball and turned around to cup his fists at the void of stars. Thank you, Senior Nightmare Taper. Goodbye. After leaving the void of stars, Lu Chen found Netherworld and the rest. To Lu Chen's surprise, he felt that it had only been a few hours since he entered the void of stars, but Netherworld and the rest said that 3 months had passed. Fortunately, Lu Chen had returned safely. The furball said that it had a dream and ate the nightmare taper, but it did not taste good at all. Lu Chen smiled slightly. If it were not for this little guy, he might have been trapped in the void of stars. Subsequently, Lu Chen told Netherworld and the rest about the terrifying creature that the nightmare taper had told him about. "Boss, I know who the nightmare taper is talking about," Rhubarb said. Lu Chen nodded. He had already gotten the answer from the nightmare taper's reminder. "It's the mad demon war god that those strange beasts in the rift world that I went to back then. If even the nightmare taper said that it's a terrifying existence and a disaster, then..." Netherworld frowned and sighed. "Does that mean that even the 8 supreme gods might not be able to defeat it?" Withered Claw said, "Didn't they say that Kong Gu has comprehended heavenly Tao and his strength has increased greatly? Did the nightmare taper consider this factor? It should be a conclusion after considering it." Lu Chen said, "The nightmare taper gives me the feeling that it knows almost everything. It won't make such a low-level mistake. Then what should we do?" Lu Chen thought for a moment and said, "Demon-sealing war god, otherworldly demons, autarchs, over-gods of the 9 heavens, over-gods, these are not existences that we can deal with right now. Now, our mission is to continue cultivating. If Kong Gu can find a way to become stronger in outer space, so can we." Chapter 1498. Lu Chen opened the star map. The latest star map showed that due to Kong Gu comprehending the Great Tao, the morale of the Jyotian gods was greatly boosted. The star map also showed that the Jyotian gods' defensive line was rapidly expanding. "It's not far from here. No wonder I can feel the dense death aura here," Netherworld said. Withered Claw nodded, "That's right. Recently, our strength has been increasing very quickly. In 3 months, I've almost leveled up as a 1-star intermediate god." Lu Chen thought for a moment and said, "Among the 8 supreme gods, only Kong Gu has shown himself. The other 7 have yet to appear. This means that they have yet to get what they want. But what is the source of the heavenly Tao? Where should we find it?" Bone Demon propped up her chin and said, "If only we could ask the supreme spiritual god." Lu Chen frowned and looked at the map carefully. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. "Perhaps, we can deduce it without asking." "Ah. How do we deduce it?" Lu Chen said, "The 8 supreme gods lead the 8 different gods. As long as we look at the distribution of the spirit gods, we should be able to guess Kong Gu's range of activity. Let me ask the Tao faction's 3 elders. Then we can take a look." Lu Chen used voice transmission to contact the Tao faction's 3 elders and Nightmare. The 2 gave the same answer. The spirit gods were in charge of guarding the northern battle zone. Referring to the star map, Lu Chen drew the area where the spirit gods were guarding. Kong Gu comprehended the heavenly Tao around here. Within this area is within their control. The surrounding guards have almost completely surrounded this area. So you feel that this star field is the key? Netherworld looked at the star map. After thinking for a moment, he nodded and said, "Lone Quang's deduction is very reasonable. Kong Gu wants to guard this place and doesn't want anyone to come close. But the defense over there is so strong. How are we going to enter?" Now that the Jyotian god's strength had increased greatly and Kong Gu was personally overseeing it, the alien beasts were unable to attack. Thus, Lu Chen also couldn't enter. "Look, the other 7 elemental formations are similar to the spiritual formation. They all have a core defensive area." Netherworld drew out the other 7 defensive areas. After comparison, it was somewhat similar to the spirit element's layout. It's possible that the other 7 over-gods are searching for a way to grow stronger. Only, given how tight the defenses are, the few of us aren't even able to get close. Withered Claw said. Lu Chen nodded. There is indeed no way to force our way in at a time like this. All the participants in the outer battlefield are high gods and sovereigns. There's no way for us to enter at all. But at least we know one thing. The power to become stronger should be in a certain place. At this moment, Gu Mei, who had been silent all this while, suddenly tilted her head and said, Big Brother Quang, rotate the star chart. Ah. Lu Chen did not understand what Bone Phantom wanted to do, but he still spun the star map projection stone. Is that so? A little more. Stop. Bone Demon finally did not have to tilt her head to look. She kept staring at the star map. There were a few suspicious places marked by Lu Chen and Netherworld, and why did these points seem familiar? Suddenly, Bone Demon's eyes widened and she exclaimed, Look at these 8 points. What do they look like? Lu Chen, Withered Claw, and Netherworld stood beside Bone Demon and stared at the star map. They look a little like a bow, I think they look a little like the bones of a dragon. Lu Chen looked for a while and said, I think they look more like the curves of a woman. Netherworld and Withered Claw looked at Lu Chen together with a strange gaze. But when they looked at those points again, they nodded. Brother Lone Quang, the more I look at them, the more similar they look. These curves are not bad at all. Bone Demon, I think you can adjust them in this direction. The range is a little bigger. Bone Demon was speechless. I say, are all men like this? I'm talking business with you. We're looking at it seriously. Bone Demon took a deep breath. She was speechless. Forget it. It's impossible to expect you to see anything. Don't you think that this looks like the 9-star map in the 9-star heaven array? Ah. The 3 of them were confused. It's fine if Brother Quang can't see it. He has only participated in the Battle of the Gods once. But Netherworld, Withered Claw, you two have seen so many battles. Can't you see it? The 9-star heaven array will cause the stars to change quickly. It looks like there is no pattern, but the distribution of the stars will not change greatly. The only thing that changes is the 9-star heaven array itself. When the 9-star heaven array corresponds to different star clusters, the 9-star heaven array is not pointing straight at the sky. Factoring in the rotation of the planet and the tilt of the 9-star heaven array, it is not difficult to calculate the true distribution of the 9-star clusters. Lu Chen and the others felt like they were listening to a book from heaven. They could not get a word in for a long time. Bone Demon walked to the front of the star map and pointed at the defensive core of the spiritual god array. If this is the spiritual god array's star cluster, then look. This is the god array, this is the Taoist array, and this is the demon array. The approximate location is correct. The 8 points on the star map correspond to 8 of the 9-star clusters. Bone Demon finished speaking excitedly and turned to look at the 3 of them. However, the cheering that they expected did not happen. Lu Chen, Netherworld, and Withered Claw looked very serious, but their eyes were full of confusion. Sai, do you only pay attention to women's curves? I've said so much. Can't you give me a reaction? Netherworld was forced to respond. Cough cough. So, Bone Demon, what you mean is that the buttocks are the ancient void. No, what buttocks? I mean, the ancient void's defensive point is where the spiritual god array's star cluster is located. It is the same for the other 7 elements. I see. Withered Claw looked enlightened. That means we should go and find the pole star now. Bone Demon nodded. No matter if these guys really understood or not, at least their conclusion was correct. That's right. The pole star's location is here. Bone Demon drew the location of the pole star neatly. The 3 of them looked at it carefully for a while and suddenly high-fived each other excitedly. What are you doing? Bone Demon was confused. I told you, Bone Demon. You've said so much, and the conclusion is the same as ours. Netherworld came to the front of the star map. If this is a woman's curve, isn't this a little less? This is the most important point of the curve. Netherworld pointed at the curve and was very excited. That means our train of thought is also correct. Gu Mei almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Lu Chen was full of confidence and said to everyone, "Okay, this place is unguarded. We can definitely go there. Then our next stop is the pole star." Chapter 1499. The outer space was too vast. Even though Lu Chen could already jump between planets, they still had a long way to go from here to Polar Star. Half a year later, Lu Chen received the latest battle report. The alien battlefield was getting bigger and bigger. Because too many gods had died in the Jiutian, even the mid-level gods had started to enter the alien battlefield. In this half a year, only Kong Gu had comprehended the way of heaven among the 8 supreme gods. The other 7 supreme gods still hadn't shown up. They were probably still comprehending their own way of heaven. Both sides were fighting frequently. Lu Chen and the others found that the route they had planned had already been drawn into the battlefield. Lu Chen and the others settled down on a barren planet and were discussing their next plan. "It's a bit troublesome to go over now." Yu Ming frowned. "We'd better take a detour. Otherwise, if we enter the battlefield, it won't be good if we encounter both sides." Lu Chen carefully observed the star map and suddenly said, "Look here. It's closer to the battlefield, but it seems that there hasn't been any fighting in the surrounding area." On the star map, there would be a red dot marking every place where there were more than 100 people fighting. Other places had more or less red dots, but this was the only place where there was no fighting. It was like a disc with a missing corner. "If we go from here, we can save the trouble of taking a detour. We'll be closer to Polar Star," Lu Chen said. Since there was a shortcut, no one wanted to take a detour. Everyone immediately got ready and moved toward the target area. A month later, Lu Chen and the others entered the target area. As soon as they entered the area, Yu Ming felt that something was wrong. "Lone Quang, the death aura here is extremely dense." "Oh. Didn't you say that there hasn't been any fighting?" "Lone Quang, look at the planet in front. Why is it black?" They had been to many worlds. Even if it was an uninhabited planet, it couldn't be black. Lu Chen also felt that it was strange. He took the 3 of them and jumped to the black planet. When they landed on the planet, everyone was stunned. The planet was covered with the remains of plants, all of which had withered. The soil was pitch black, and a layer of black gas pervaded the surface of the ground, reaching up to Lu Chen's knees. Netherworld carefully inspected a withered tree. The moment his finger touched it, the withered tree turned into black gas. These plants didn't wither from the flames, they withered naturally. Withered Claw frowned. Strange, all the plants on a planet suddenly withered at the same time. Lu Chen summoned Rhubarb for it to take a look. Rhubarb also frowned. "This is devil chi, but these plants were normal in the beginning. Normal plants can't grow in places where monsters gather. So, this demonic chi appeared suddenly. The characteristics of the demonic chi here are exactly the same. In other words, after a certain creature appeared, all the plants here withered and died." When everyone heard this, they were all dumbfounded. That creature had only appeared here, but all life on this planet had withered away. What kind of terrifying existence was this thing? At this moment, Bone Phantom pointed at a dilapidated building in the distance and said, "Is that an altar?" Lu Chen turned around and was immediately stunned. "Lone Tyrant, what's wrong?" Withered Claw asked. "I think I've been here before." Lu Chen's eyes widened as he looked around at the world that had changed beyond recognition. This is a crack world. The chances of coming to this planet in the vast outer space were too small, but he actually appeared here again. However, This place was completely different from before. Originally, there were powerful monsters everywhere, and the entire world was covered in forests. Although it was a dangerous place for Lu Chen, it was at least a rich world. However, this place had turned into hell. This is the mad demon war god's world. He destroyed his own world. Lu Chen said in a deep voice. After that, Lu Chen quickly flashed to an altar not far away and took out a chaos core and placed it on top of it. I wonder if it can still be used. After waiting for a while, there was no reaction from the altar. Lone Tyrant, let's leave this place quickly. Netherworld said anxiously. If we meet that guy, we're finished. Lu Chen frowned. What kind of terrifying level is that guy's strength? Just the spiritual energy he emitted was enough to destroy a world. Netherworld, we can't leave now. The soil here is being eroded by demonic chi. It won't be long before this world disappears. After saying that, Lu Chen hurriedly looked towards the northwest. Let's go. Let's see if we can still find an altar that can be used. Some of the altars along the way had been destroyed. Lu Chen tried many times, but there was no reaction from the altars. Unknowingly, Lu Chen found a towering altar in front of him. It was the place where the level 9 altar was originally located. The level 9 altar was also a mess, filled with black energy. If one looked carefully, they would see many mutilated corpses on the ground. Hundreds of thousands. Millions. Lu Chen couldn't figure it out. He only felt that it was a shocking sight. Lu Chen gritted his teeth. The level 9 altar can only be used once every 20 years. Since the mutated beast has awakened the demon-sealing battle god, it should be useless. Although the hope was slim, Lu Chen still decided to give it a try. After placing 100 chaos spirit nuclei on the altar, there was still no reaction from the altar. Just as Lu Chen was about to leave, a female fairy's virtual image suddenly appeared on the altar. She looked at Lu Chen and didn't seem surprised. You've returned. Lu Chen was astonished. You were summoned by me? No. The fairy said, I don't have much time left, I can't make you stronger now, but I can give you one last free guidance. The demon-sealing battle god has awakened, and his strength is increasing crazily. In a few days, he will become the most terrifying otherworldly devil. But he has already lost control. Not only will he destroy the Jiutian, but he will also destroy the entire outer space. He will destroy everything in front of him. Lu Chen hurriedly asked, is that Kong Gu its opponent? Kong Gu? If he meets the demon-sealing battle god now, he might have a chance of winning. But when the demon-sealing battle god becomes a berserk devil, even Kong Gu won't be his opponent. His physical body is undying and indestructible. Who do you think can defeat him? Lu Chen's heart sank. If this guy were to kill his way into the Jiutian, no planet would be able to resist him. The demon-sealing battle god has already left this world. You are temporarily safe, but you only have 3 years at most. After 3 years, the demon-sealing battle god will complete his last upgrade. And after the hint, it will also be the end of the war in outer space. My mission has been completed. Goodbye, solipsistic. Wait. Before Lu Chen could finish his words, the female fairy's virtual image had already disappeared. The entire altar became dark and lifeless. The altar shattered and the stone pillars collapsed. After a long time, Netherworld and the rest came back to their senses. Just now the fairy said that even Kong Gu won't be the demon-sealing battle god's opponent. Doesn't that mean that the Jiutian will be defeated and the myriad worlds will be destroyed? Lu Chen took a deep breath, his expression grave. The demon-sealing battle god, could it be that this guy is going to rely on his own strength to solve the problem? Chapter 1500. The level 9 altar fairy completed its last guidance. Lu Chen and the others had to set off. 2 months later, Lu Chen and the others finally arrived at the polar star system. Lone Tyrant, Polar Star is your guardian star. We already feel uncomfortable here. We might not be able to accompany you on the road ahead, Yuming said. Lu Chen nodded. The closer he got to Polar Star, the more he felt a sense of intimacy. He felt that way, but Yuming and the others should feel something else. Alright, you guys be careful. After bidding farewell to his companions, Lu Chen jumped in the direction of Polar Star. When Lu Chen got close to Polar Star, he didn't even need a star chart to determine the direction of his jump. It was as if someone was calling him from the underworld. As he got closer to Polar Star, this feeling became more and more obvious. After dozens of jumps, Lu Chen saw a huge blue planet floating in the boundless galaxy. This is Polar Star. In a spurt of energy, Lu Chen directly jumped to the polar land. The environment of this planet almost made Lu Chen think that he had come to Earth. No, to be precise, it was more comfortable than Earth. Suitable oxygen, temperature, blue sky, snow-white clouds, green plants everywhere, clear streams, and occasionally some animals in the forest. These animals were not exotic beasts. Instead, they were more like small wild animals on Earth. Lu Chen tried not to use his spiritual energy to protect his body. He took a deep breath. The fresh air entered his lungs, making him feel indescribably comfortable. He raised his hand. A beautiful insect fluttered on his fingertips. It stayed on his finger for a moment before flying away. What a beautiful world. Lu Chen couldn't help but sigh. Just like a fairyland. This is Polar Star, the guardian star of mortals. The feeling of calling me is even stronger. Lu Chen looked into the distance. Although he was sure that he had never been here before, he had a feeling that he wanted to go in that direction. Not long after, Lu Chen arrived in front of a huge waterfall. Upon closer inspection, one could see a waterfall spanning hundreds of meters. Behind the water curtain was a smooth stone platform. Lu Chen arrived on the platform in a flash. In front of the platform, there was half a stone tablet. There were words on it. The text was reorganized into Chinese characters. Above the human king is the human sovereign. The human sovereign is the limit. Lu Chen looked at this line of words and felt an indescribable sense of loss. Was this the news he received after crossing the Milky Way to the Polar Star? The human sovereign realm was the end. No. I don't believe it. Lu Chen roared angrily. Pangu said that a plate of human emperor could only correspond to a lower deity. Is the limit of a mortal a 9-star lower deity? A mere lesser deity can't possibly be the end. My current strength is already above that of a lesser deity. To reach the pinnacle of humanity is to break through the limits. Why are you telling me now that the Renhuang Plain is the limit? Polar Star, you don't know anything at all. However, no one answered Lu Chen. After venting, Lu Chen sat on the ground weakly. He could see the line of words as soon as he looked up. Lu Chen knew very well that even if he cultivated to the 9-star human sovereign realm, with his mutated physique, his strength might only be comparable to that of a higher deity. As for the gods, there were superior deities, major deities, and supreme deities. However, the supreme deities were still trapped at the level 8. Clearly, there were stronger gods above the supreme deities. The 9-star human sovereign realm could not be compared to them at all. He even began to wonder what was the point of him walking all the way here. After an unknown period of time, Lu Chen looked at the stone tablet again and suddenly stood up. Where is the other half of the stone tablet? Little beast, little furball, origin, rhubarb, little golden carp, little green, Qianji, help me find it. Lu Chen called out all of his battle pets, ghost pets, and puppets. He was eager to find the other half of the stone tablet. After an unknown period of time, Lu Chen searched everywhere, but he could not find the whereabouts of the other half of the stone tablet. Pangu said that someone had reached the human sovereign realm in the past. Since that person was a human sovereign realm, he might have gone to the outer world to look for Polar Star. Could it be that that person saw the stone tablet and smashed it in a fit of anger? There was no hint about the other half of the stone tablet at all. Thinking of this, Lu Chen felt an indescribable heaviness in his heart. Nowadays, the war in the outer world was getting more and more intense. Not only were the outer world demons and the Jiutian gods fighting fiercely, but there was also a terrifying mad demon god of war who was growing rapidly. This war concerned the survival of all races and worlds. However, Lu Chen, like others, was powerless to control his own fate. That's it? Lu Chen sneered helplessly. In the end, I'm just a joke. Lu Chen sat behind the water curtain in a daze. His mind was blank. Dad, boss, everyone was silent. The situation this time was different from the past. Even Pangu only knew about the human sovereign realm, and this was the planet that guarded the human sovereign realm. The hint it gave could not be wrong. In other words, this was already a foregone conclusion. Lu Chen's limit, the limit of mortals, was only the 9-star human sovereign realm. Lu Chen sighed. Sitting on the platform, he stared blankly at the waterfall without saying a word. 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, even Little Beast and the others had never seen Lu Chen so depressed. They knew Lu Chen too well. He needed to become stronger to save his father and solve all the mysteries. In the current situation, they were suffering along with Lu Chen. A month later, Lu Chen let out a long sigh. He came to the water curtain and said faintly, even if I'm only a 9-star human sovereign realm, I have to give it a try. Everyone looked at Lu Chen in surprise. Lu Chen smiled and said, besides, even if there's a limit to my strength, I still have you guys. Just like what Little Beast said, you are also my combat strength. Squeak squeak squeak. The little furry ball happily jumped onto Lu Chen's shoulder and intimately rubbed its head against Lu Chen's cheek. It had to work hard to become stronger for its boss. It seems that I need to practice the heavenly demon skill. Boss, don't worry. Even if your limit is a 9-star human sovereign realm, you will always be our boss. Dad, I also have to work hard. Benefactor, little golden carp only wanted to find treasures before. From today on, I will also find a way to jump through the dragon gate. Little originator roared, asking the others to beat it more in the future. Lu Chen couldn't help laughing. These guys, the spiritual chi here is abundant. I'll practice here. Little golden carp, take them around. Remember to stay away from the battlefield. Well, boss, leave it to me. I'll take them to a place far away from the battlefield, little golden carp said. This time, little golden carp and the others' expressions were different from before. They were surprisingly serious. Lu Chen's limit had been fixed. Only when they became stronger could they give Lu Chen a chance to face more challenges. Chapter 1501. 10 years. In these 10 years, the 8 supreme gods had broken through their limits and returned to the battlefield. A year ago, the Jiutian gods were already invading the outside world. More than half of the 4 supreme demons and the 8 demon lords had died. The Jiutian realms finally heaved a sigh of relief. They were about to win this war. Although the 8 supreme gods did not care about the survival of the Jiutian realms and initiated the war, it would be good for everyone if they could really rule the outer world. At least for the weaker realms, they did not have to worry about their realms being destroyed. However, a year ago, an unknown demonic beast suddenly appeared on the battlefield and killed 7 supreme gods on its own. It turned the situation around and wiped out more than 500 Jiutian gods. This battle became the turning point of the alien battlefield. In the following year, wherever the demonic beast appeared, the Jiutian gods were wiped out. No one escaped. More than 40 sovereigns had died at its hands alone. As for high gods and gods, it had probably killed more than 10,000 people. In the myriad spirit star cluster, the supreme spiritual god swept his palm across and a strange space appeared. In this space, he could see the other 7 supreme gods at the same time. The mad demon war god is getting stronger and stronger. If we don't kill him soon, there will be trouble in the future. A gray-brown-skinned man in the space said calmly, "We are pursuing the peak of the supreme Tao, but he is the peak of the demon Tao." A beautiful woman said, "If that's the case, why should we be afraid of the mad demon? He's just a lunatic without reason. Can he really comprehend the ultimate demon Tao? If those supreme gods, and intermediate gods die, so be it. As long as we have the strength to enter the 9th heaven, the mad demon war god is nothing to worry about." That's right. Since we have this opportunity to comprehend the heavenly Tao, we must seize every second. We don't have the time to care about these things. Once the heavenly Tao is completed, we can rule the world. A mere mad demon is not worth mentioning. Everyone, quickly comprehend the heavenly Tao and see if you can enter the 9th heaven domain. The other supreme gods had the same idea. Kong-gu raised his hand again and the space disappeared. Then, he looked at the stone tablet in front of him. There were 2 sentences on the stone tablet. Spiritual emptiness, wheel of life and death. If you see through it, you can glimpse the heavenly Tao. Comprehend the heavenly Tao, control heaven and earth. All gods and demons are ants. It was impossible to tell what ancient Kong was thinking. After a moment of silence, he murmured, "Hegemons are just one level below paramount gods. If I become a ruler, will I be able to enter the 9 heavens, where no one has ever been before?" Even as a supreme god, Kong-gu did not know the answer. The only way was to verify it himself. Kong-gu turned around and looked at the portal behind him. He had already entered this portal countless times. There was a strange space inside, and this portal was the key to helping him comprehend the 10,000 spirit heavenly Tao. The Sovereign's Gate. Ancient Kong took a deep breath. "I hope I can reach large success in the divine Tao this time and step into the sovereign realm." After saying that, Kong-gu stepped into the portal. 10 years passed by in a flash. The nameless waterfall of Polar Star poured down in torrents. In the splashing water curtain, a figure sat cross-legged. There was half a stone tablet in front of him, but there was no teleportation door behind him. Water was the place where spirit chi gathered. The endless spirit chi of Polar Star gathered here in countless ways. The water curtain seemed to have isolated Lu Chen from all contact with the outside world. His white hair had already reached his waist, and his body size had also returned to its original one. 75 meters. It was just that between his eyebrows, there was less ignorance of the unruly youth, and more tranquility. The road of Jiutian was hurried for a few decades, but he had experienced far more than that. At this moment, he had reached the end of his strength. On his chest, it was written, 9 stars Wild Divine Demon Human Emperor, Variant. What was the heavenly Tao's origin? Lu Chen did not find it. What he found was the end of the mortal world. Even if he broke through the limit again and again, even if he had far exceeded the strength of an ordinary 9-star human emperor. But in the end, mortals were not as good as gods. However, the interesting thing was that he had to continue on this path. Opening his eyes, Lu Chen took a deep breath. He had just completed the breakthrough to 9-star human emperor, and his whole body was indescribably comfortable. He stood up and came in front of the water curtain. Through the water curtain, he looked at the hazy world outside. It was as if he had returned to his hometown, Earth. This place is really good, Lu Chen sighed. I wonder how Little Beast and the others are doing with their cultivation. Lu Chen checked his voice-transmitting talisman. Having cultivated to 9-star human emperor, Lu Chen had reached the end of his realm. Now, Lu Chen suddenly had nothing to do. Speaking of voice-transmitting talismans, Lu Chen had a lot of them in his hands. They were all given to him by the friends he met along the way. They always said, "Send me a message if you need anything." However, Lu Chen's pace was too fast. In the end, many people lost contact with him. Unfortunately, most of these voice-transmitting talismans were not myriad world voice-transmitting talismans. They could not transmit their voices over such a long distance. Lu Chen could only dismiss the idea of harassing them. Lu Chen thought for a moment. Little Beast and the others would contact him if they were in danger. Since there was no news from them, it was good news. My strength has reached the level of a superior god. However, Senior Pangu and Senior Jiuyo have repeatedly reminded me to go back and synthesize the souls of gods and demons. I should wait until I go back. Qian Ji and the others protected Little Green while they searched for herbs outside. Lu Chen had nothing to do. He walked out of the water curtain and jumped upstream of the waterfall. The birds were singing and the flowers were fragrant. The water was calm. The air was mixed with the fragrance of flowers and the smell of soil. It was especially refreshing. Lu Chen lay on the grass with his hands behind his head. He felt the slightly moist breeze caressing his face. He had not rested like this for a long time. At this moment, Lu Chen seemed to have merged with his surroundings. Unknowingly, Lu Chen fell into a deep sleep. In his sleep, Lu Chen dreamed of a woman. She came to his side gently, bent down, and gently stroked his cheek. Her eyes were filled with love and heartache. He heard the woman talking to him. "My chin has already grown so big. You must be very tired after all these years. Fortunately, you are still that kind child. You are still the same chin who adheres to your heart. If you are tired, then rest well. Go and experience everything in the world. The flowers, the grass, the wind, the clouds, the rivers, the earth, the sky. The gods have severed their ties with the mortal world and jumped out of the 5 elements. They are no longer in the 6 paths. They are comprehending the heavenly Tao. But why do they have to jump out of the 5 elements? We are in the 5 elements. We are the people in the painting. Since that is the case, then stop and experience everything. Feel the meaning of existence. Chen, the heavens and earth give birth to all things, but at the same time, they ignore all things. This is their heavenly Tao. However, the beauty of the world needs someone to protect it. If the human sovereign is the limit of mortals, then go and surpass this limit. If the human sovereign is the limit, then, go and become the limit. Chapter 1502. The woman looked at Lu Chen lovingly and leaned over to kiss Lu Chen's cheek. "Chen, wake up. It's time to go." Tears fell from the corners of the woman's eyes and landed on Lu Chen's cheek. She stood up and looked back 3 times with each step, but in the end, she disappeared into the forest. Lu Chen struggled to get up, but his body seemed to be filled with lead and he couldn't move. Was this a dream? Lu Chen suddenly woke up. He tried his best to wake himself up. "Mother." Lu Chen opened his eyes. However, the stars were in the sky and night had fallen. Insects and birds were everywhere, but the woman was nowhere to be seen. Lu Chen suddenly realized that there were tear stains at the corners of his eyes. He couldn't tell if they were his or his mother's. He quickly chased in the direction his mother left in his dream. After an unknown amount of time, Lu Chen returned here dejectedly. He didn't find his mother. He didn't even find a trace of her. Maybe it was really just a dream. Become above the limit. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly and fell into deep thought. The answer given by Polar Star might be true. The human sovereign realm was the limit of cultivation for mortals, but who was the one who set the so-called levels? Or rather, when someone cultivated to 9-star human sovereign, he didn't pass the tribulation for some reason. How did he become the first human sovereign? Rules. Or rules. Rules determined that those above human sovereign could pass the tribulation and become human sovereign. Rules determined that human sovereign was the limit of mortal cultivation. Lu Chen had broken countless rules, but in the past, he had only broken Jiutian internal rules. Now, he wasn't just facing Jiutian rules. Taking a deep breath, Lu Chen's brows furrowed. Since no one had done it before, then he would create a precedent and become the first person in history. Perceiving the connection between all things. Lu Chen recalled his mother's words. It was said that there were 4 stages of spiritual energy. The first stage was spiritual energy, the second stage was spiritual energy following the heart, and the third stage was spiritual energy observation. These 3 known stages were the process of making spiritual energy more and more detailed, but they didn't involve the connection between things. Could this be the 4th stage? It's not the refinement or materialization of spirit energy, but the connection of perception. Thinking of this, Lu Chen immediately sat up. The polar star was full of vitality and spiritual energy. It was the best place to sense the spiritual energy of things. Lu Chen quickly shifted his attention from the spiritual energy emitted by a certain object to the interconnection of spiritual energy between objects. The strands of spirit threads intertwined with each other and reacted. Some died, some reacted, and new spirit energy was produced. Lu Chen saw countless possibilities in his eyes. As he sat down, Lu Chen seemed to have entered a meditative state. He turned into a stone and blended into it. After an unknown period of time, Lu Chen began to observe an even greater spiritual energy connection. Mountains and rivers, clouds and earth, forests and soil, and air. Even the spiritual energy coming from the stars was reacting with each other. In the past 2 years, Lu Chen had been observing the connection between the spiritual qi of all living things. The polar star in Lu Chen's eyes had become completely different. Here, countless types of spirit energy intertwined. They were intricate and inextricably linked, and together, they formed the current polar star. On this day, Lu Chen closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Celestial Demon Observation Heavenly Eye. The moment the heavenly eye opened, the whole world became unusually clear. The earth gave birth to life, and life allowed the former spirit energy to spread further. Water vapor evaporated, and after cumulus clouds turned into rain, it spread to a wider area. Life absorbed nutrients, and after death, it turned into nutrients to enrich the earth. The connection between all living things was endless. They affected each other and helped each other. Gradually, in Lu Chen's eyes, these connections gradually merged into a complete cycle, becoming more and more complete. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly. 4th level of spirit energy refinement, spirit as one. Immediately after, Lu Chen began to perfect his spirit core according to this theory. His spirit energy was already in a liquid state, circulating around his body like rivers, removing the impurities in his body and providing energy. In the past, these spirit veins only had their own roles, but now Lu Chen needed to form them into a whole. With the spirit core as the core, he needed to achieve mastery. Not long after, Lu Chen suddenly found that the spiritual liquid began to improve his physical strength again. Not only that, but the spirit core also began to absorb spirit energy. Is there really room for improvement? Lu Chen widened his eyes. This discovery meant a lot to Lu Chen. As long as he could continue to improve his spirit core, it meant that he could break through to the 9-star human emperor realm. The demand for spirit energy is too large. The spirit energy around me can't meet the spirit energy supply. Lu Chen quickly found another problem. After thinking about it, Lu Chen immediately activated the divine power of heaven and the devil power of defiance. After being strengthened, when the dual powers were used alone, in addition to increasing his attributes, Lu Chen could also become an extremely strong spirit-gathering body. Now, what Lu Chen needed was not to increase his attributes, but to absorb more spirit energy. In other words, he wanted to become a spirit-gathering body and crazily absorb the spirit energy of the polar star. Lu Chen's body slowly flew into the air, and the spirit energy on the polar star surged toward Lu Chen. Here, Lu Chen was like a huge whirlpool, crazily absorbing the spirit energy of the entire planet. Lu Yi was collecting herbs at the foot of the mountain when she suddenly felt a strong wind blowing around her. She stood up and looked into the distance. She saw a small black dot floating in the sky, and a whirlpool had formed around him. It was like a black hole. Boss! Lu Yi's eyes widened. What? What's going on? Qian Ji also saw this scene and frowned. It can't be. Even if he becomes a 9-star human emperor, there shouldn't be any changes. Why is there such a huge movement? He must have broken through. Lu Yi exclaimed. Boss must have broken through. I knew that he could do it. He is a heaven-defying person. Qian Ji was confused. That works? Didn't we say that human emperor is the peak? How can this guy still break through? Where's the law? Lu Yi did not care about what Qian Ji said. Qian Ji, quick. Let's go and find boss. Alright, the earth puppet escorted Lu Yi to the ground below Lu Chen. At this moment, Lu Chen was like a god, sitting cross-legged in the air. He looked extremely holy. Lu Yi saw the changes in Lu Chen and suddenly burst into tears. Boss finally broke through. That's great. Before this, Lu Yi was also sad for Lu Chen. But now, she was only happy and happy. Qian Ji shook his head. Sigh. Looks like I won't be able to kill this guy even if I return to the past. This guy is a lunatic. A lunatic that can't be suppressed at all. Not long later, the surrounding wind stopped. Lu Chen opened his eyes slightly and saw Lu Yi and the Earth Guardian below him. In an instant, Lu Chen appeared in front of Lu Yi. Lu Yi was a little nervous. Boss looked a little scary. The feeling he gave off was like a stranger. Maybe it was because he was too powerful that Lu Yi felt that way. Was this man still the same boss as before? Chapter 1503. Boss. Lu Yi looked at the man in front of her nervously. Are you okay? Lu Chen looked at Lu Yi calmly and frowned. This action made Lu Yi nervous. Boss had changed too much this time. Even she was not sure if Boss was still the same as before. Boss, you. Lu Chen finally spoke. You. How long has it been since you bought clothes? Look at the clothes you are wearing. They are almost worn out. When we return to Jiutian, I will buy a few more sets for you. Lu Yi had been running around for more than 10 years. Her clothes were already worn out. However, Lve couldn't care less about her clothes. She threw herself into Lu Chen's arms and said excitedly, Boss, I thought that after you broke through, you would be as cold and ruthless as the others. Lu Chen frowned. Silly girl. If I were to become like that, I would have changed long ago. Qian Ji could not help but ask. Lu Chen, what level are you now? Little Green immediately thought of this question. He quickly let go of Lu Chen and looked at his badge. 9 stars Wild Divine Demon Human Emperor, mutated. Why didn't you change? Lu Yi tilted her head and asked curiously. Oh, right. We are in outer space. However, Lu Chen shook his head. I don't know. I only feel that I am stronger than before. However, I am not sure if I have broken through to the next level. You have become stronger again. Qian Ji opened his eyes wide. Alright, I really admire you this time. I admit defeat to you. Lu Chen glared at Qian Ji. So, you were not convinced before. Qianji looked at his hand and his expression changed. No, no. What I mean is. Piak. Qianji slapped himself. Qianji cried. Lu Chen, you're already so strong. Why are you still torturing me? I've helped you so much, can't you treat me a little better? Lu Chen snorted. Although you've been doing well recently, you tried to touch my sister. That's unforgivable. Qianji immediately lost his temper. He felt wronged and tears welled up in his eyes. Looking at Qianji's aggrieved face, Lu Chen felt both angry and amused. After all, it was impossible for Qianji to become Lu Chen's confidant. If Qianji had lost the battle back then, things would not have turned out this way. Boss, Little Beast and the others have been training outside for over 10 years now. Little Green said. I kind of miss them. Lu Chen nodded. Yes, 13 years have passed in the blink of an eye. I wonder how strong they are now. Let me ask them. Lu Chen took out a voice transmission talisman and sent a message to the little beast. After a while, the little beast replied. Dad, we're doing pretty well. However, we still want to train outside for a while. Lu Chen was surprised. Since when did these guys become so hardworking? Boss, are we going to wait for them here? Little Green asked. Lu Chen thought for a while and said. Forget it. We've been out for too long. Let's return to Jiutian first. All right. Lu Chen called Little Green and the Earth Puppet back and looked at the planet again. The mother in his dream might not be real, but this planet gave him new hope. Jixing, thanks. Lu Chen disappeared and arrived at a planet at the edge of the Milky Way in the blink of an eye. Netherworld, Withered Claw, and Bone Wraith were still training. When they saw Lu Chen, they immediately stood up. Lone Tyrant. Lu Chen briefly examined the three of them. Their strength had actually risen to the level of a 3-star god. He smiled and said, You guys rose in stars again. Netherworld said with embarrassment, Sigh, it's all the death energy that we accumulated before. Now, there are many undead creatures on the battlefield. We don't have much of an advantage in training anymore. Yes, and our level has risen, but our corresponding strength still needs to be strengthened. With our aptitude, it won't be as easy to rise in level as before. Lu Chen nodded. At least their level was much higher than before. Big Brother Quang, did you gain anything in Jixing? Bone Wraith asked. You're now a 9-star human sovereign. You've improved so much. Jixing is very suitable for my training, so my level rose quickly. Lu Chen did not explain too much. After all, he did not know what level he was at now. Since there was not much room for improvement here, Lu Chen took Netherworld and the others back to the Jiutian. Previously, it took Lu Chen 4 or 5 years to go from the transmission formation to Jixing. However, this time, it only took Lu Chen 3 months to go back. His jumping distance was 10 times longer than before. Through observing the star chart, Lu Chen also understood the current situation of the alien battlefield. The alien beasts fought back desperately, and the Jiutian gods were retreating. However, the 8 supreme gods did not appear. It was worth mentioning that the demon-sealing war god appeared a few times at the beginning of the alien beasts' counterattack. However, after the alien beasts regained their advantage, he suddenly disappeared. Strange, why is the demon-sealing war god helping the alien beasts? Netherworld said. Isn't he extremely crazy? How can he differentiate between friend and foe? Lu Chen also thought about this and said, maybe it's his obsession. He was originally the guardian of that world. In order to obtain power, he became a demon. Even if he woke up again, his hatred for the Jiutian has not been completely eliminated. Therefore, compared to the alien beasts, he should prioritize killing the Jiutian gods. I didn't expect the demon-sealing war god to be such a pitiful person. Bone Demon sighed. There are too many helpless people in this world. A few days later, Lu Chen and the others returned to the planet where they had landed when they first arrived. Lu Chen transmitted his voice to the three elders of the Dao department and asked them to open the transmission formation again. Soon, a black hole appeared in front of them. Can we still use this transmission formation now? Withered Claw suddenly asked. Lu Chen smiled. The reason why we can't pass through this transmission formation is that there is a one-way defense formation hidden inside. Now that we have entered the Jiutian, it is equivalent to passing through. You will be fine. Big Brother Quang, how did you know? I didn't know at first, but later on, I thought about it and realized that the spirit chi in the transmission formation is interconnected, similar to a defense formation. Interconnected spirit chi. Netherworld and the other two did not understand. Lu Chen smiled. Alright, don't worry. I will bring you back. Since Lu Chen said that it was fine, Netherworld and the other two did not hesitate and stepped into the black hole at the same time. This time, Lu Chen did not even feel the familiar dizziness during the transmission. He could feel that the spirit chi was interconnected, and they followed these spirit chi channels to enter the Jiutian from outer space. When they arrived at the exit, Lu Chen realized that the people waiting for him were not the three elders of the Dao department, but two people who were very far away. De Zhuang and the marshal were dozens of meters away. When they saw Lu Chen come out, they hurriedly went up to him. Good Lord, little Lu Chen, you are preparing to combine. De Zhuang was excited. However, when De Zhuang looked at Lu Chen again, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. Little Lu Chen, you are now. Lu Chen looked at his badge. It was still a 9-star human emperor. However, Lu Chen was not depressed. In front of everyone, he raised his hand and the badge disappeared. This mark that could not be removed in the Jiutian had been erased by Lu Chen. Chapter 1504. Lu Chen spread his hands helplessly. Now, I don't know what realm I'm in. De Zhuang and Marshall frowned. They looked at each other and walked back to whisper. What's going on? Even a 9-star human emperor can't erase the badge. I don't know either. Strictly speaking, you and I are not gods of the Jiutian. It's fine if we don't have badges, but this guy is from the Jiutian, but he can erase the badge. Could it be that he has surpassed the 9-star human emperor and the Jiutian can't recognize him? Lu Chen walked up to the two and frowned. Seniors, do you want to test my current strength? The two exchanged a look and said in unison, yes. Lu Chen smiled. Okay, then please wait for me in the world of the Bone Demon's faith. I'll go see the three elders of the Taoist faction first. I'll be back soon. Okay, we'll wait for you. Hurry up. Lu Chen nodded. He raised his hand again, and the badge on his chest appeared again. 9-star human emperor was still written on the badge. The three elders of the Taoist faction were definitely not on his side, so Lu Chen didn't want them to know too much. Then, Lu Chen used a transmission talisman and came to the residence of the three elders of the Taoist faction. The three elders of the Taoist faction already knew that Lu Chen was coming back. They were waiting in the cave residence. When they saw Lu Chen, they hurried to Lu Chen's side. Lu Chen, how did it go? Lu Chen cupped his fists and said, Seniors, the 9-star clusters contain important information about comprehending the heavenly path. The 8 supreme gods should be comprehending the heavenly path now, and the places where they are comprehending the heavenly path correspond to the 8-star clusters of the 9-star clusters. I guess the heavenly path guidance hidden in the 8-star clusters should be different. As for what it is, I can't be sure. Grand Truth frowned slightly. You've already mentioned the 9-star clusters. After careful observation, we discovered that the 8 supreme gods comprehended the heavenly Tao in the 8-star clusters according to the sequence. As the saying goes, man proposes, God disposes. The three elders of the Dao faction had schemed to let Lu Qin go to the outer sky, but they didn't expect that Kong Gu had already comprehended the heavenly Dao one step ahead of them. You went to Polar Star? Lu Qin said frankly, yes. Did you find anything? The Polar Star was of great help to my cultivation. I cultivated to the level of 9-star Renhuang. There is a stone tablet on the Polar Star, and the information on it tells me that the Renhuang realm is the limit of mortal cultivation. That's why I'm certain that the 8-star clusters have the same hint. Xian Zhen frowned and said, it seems that our initial guess was right. The key to breaking through to the 8th level of the heavens lies in the outer space. It's a pity that the over-gods aren't any more stupid than we are. Instead, they found a way to comprehend the Tao before we did. The three old men sighed. Currently, the 8-star clusters were occupied by the over-gods. It seemed that they couldn't use them for the time being. Tai Xing looked at Lu Chen and asked, have you found the nightmare taper? Yes, Lu Chen said, seniors, please tell me how to find Mu Sheng. The three of them looked at each other. Finally, the worldly Taoist said, now that Hong Meng is comprehending the heavenly Tao, and the aliens are about to invade the Jiutian, they haven't made a move yet. It seems that they don't plan to make a move before they fully comprehend the heavenly Tao. Now is the best time for you to find Mu Sheng. She's in Hong Meng's world of faith, on the tree god planet. But you have to be careful. Mu Sheng has lost her previous memories, so she'll see you as an intruder. In the end, Lu Chen nodded. Thank you, seniors. Although the three elders of the Dao faction and Lu Chen were in a cooperative relationship, the three elders were very trustworthy. In this regard, Lu Chen didn't dislike them. After reporting everything that needed to be reported, Lu Chen turned around and prepared to leave. At that moment, Tai Xing asked, Lu Chen, if the Emperor realm is the end, what will you do next? Lu Chen stopped in his tracks and smirked. The Emperor realm is the end of a mortal's cultivation, but it's not the end of mine. Lu Chen led the group to a barren planet after departing from Bone Wraith's world of faith. The planet was filled with yellow soil that stretched as far as the eye could see. The undulating ground formed a winding mountain range, but there was not a single plant in sight. On the spacious field, Nether Spirit, Withered Claw, and Bone Wraith stood aside and watched the three of them nervously. Little Lu Chen, are you ready? The test is about to begin. De Zhuang smiled. Don't be nervous. I'll only have the ability of a 1-star high-level god at most. I can use 2-star. De Shuai said suddenly. He was a star higher than De Zhuang. De Zhuang glared at De Shuai. Is that interesting? Yes. Lu Chen was speechless. The two of them were still the same. Seniors, you don't have to limit your abilities, Lu Chen said. I also want to see how strong I can be. Lu Chen's words quickly drew the hatred away. Oh, little guy, your confidence is off the charts. De Shuai chuckled as he looked at Lu Chen. After being in outer space for less than 20 years, your confidence has changed. Alright, you said it yourself. Don't say that we're bullying you. De Shuai crossed his arms in front of his chest. Show us your weapons. Lu Chen frowned slightly. The two of you don't need weapons. I can't bring my sky-splitting axe out, De Zhuang said. But it doesn't matter. Against a kid like you, not to mention weapons, I can even give you 2 arms and a leg. De Shuai's situation should be the same as De Zhuang. They couldn't bring their weapons out from the space-time turbulence. Little Lu Chen, don't cry later. Lu Chen smiled and obediently took out the Void God-destroying spear, God-demon limitless sword, and chaos magic staff. Damn, we don't need weapons, but you actually took out 3 at once. That's too much. Hanga looked at the 3 weapons and couldn't help but feel a little guilty. Lu Chen smiled. I want to test my abilities, so I naturally have to go all out. Anyway, the 2 seniors should be able to handle it. After saying that, Lu Chen shouted, God-Demon Symbiosis. Dragon God Form, Devil Transformation, War God Possession, Emptiness of Gods and Demons Arm, God-Demon Heavenly Eyes, Inner Demon, God-Demon Astral Form, Great Void Form, Dragon God Form, Death Land, Dragon Blood Boiling, God-Demon Heaven's Might. Suddenly, a surge of incomparable spiritual power instantly exploded around Lu Chen. The violent spiritual energy stirred up the dust in the air. A huge pit with a diameter of 1,000 meters appeared under Lu Chen's feet. Yu Ming and the other two were directly sent flying hundreds of meters. When the dust settled, a man with white hair, dragon scales, and demonized arms was floating in the air. Around him, 3 divine artifacts floated around him. Seeing this scene, De Zhuang and De Shuai's expressions were a little unnatural. This guy. What kind of strength is this? Cough cough, that, little Lu Chen, as the saying goes, a lion and tiger will use all their strength to catch a rabbit. What we said just now was just a joke. If we really fight, you have to be careful. We will still use a little of our strength. Lu Chen looked down from above and smiled. Seniors, in short, I am the strongest form. As for the two of you, do as you wish. Chapter 1505. Pangu and Nine Nether finally became serious. Both of them released a shocking amount of spiritual energy at the same time. For a moment, on this unknown planet, a sandstorm rose and the atmosphere rotated. It was like a world of primal chaos. Nine Nether, I'll go first. Pangu shouted and instantly appeared in front of Lu Chen. Little Lu Chen, you'll lose within 3 moves. Alright, I'll let you make the first move. Nine Nether was still 1 step slower and shouted in dissatisfaction, Pangu, you despicable person. Pangu was Pangu after all. His face was still very important. He let Lu Chen make the first move. Lu Chen did not hold back and grabbed the god-slaying spear. Void form, 9 spear shadow spear. Instantly, Lu Chen turned into a golden light and shot toward Pangu. Pangu's eyes widened. 9 spears. This guy. Grand Universe Spirit Shield. A huge spiritual energy shield appeared in front of Pangu. With a loud bang, the 9-spear shadow spear collided with the Grand Universe Spirit Shield, creating a huge spiritual energy turbulence. The aftermath flattened the surrounding mountains. Seeing this scene, Yu Ming and the other two were shocked beyond words. Are you kidding me? This isn't even Lone Tyrant's strongest move. It's already so terrifying. I heard De Zhuang and Senior Marshal talking just now. These two are Creation God Pangu and Chaos Demon God Nine Nether. Heavens, so it's these two who have been following us all this time. Big Brother Quan can actually exchange blows with 2 ancient gods. Then his strength. No, he's definitely not just a 9-star superior god. After the huge spiritual energy collision, the 2 figures were sent flying. However, Pangu suddenly stopped halfway and sneered, Little Lu Chen, the 9-spear shadow spear is indeed powerful. Unfortunately, it's far from enough. Seeing that Pangu was about to catch up, Lu Chen held Limitless Sword in his left hand and shouted, Primal Chaos Storm. Tiger descends the mountain. Sacred Lotus Sword Heart. The Sacred Lotus Sword Heart was supported by the power of the Primal Chaos Storm. The power of each sword was not to be underestimated. Countless sword chi smashed toward Pangu. After fending off the sword energy a few times, a trace of surprise flashed across Pangu's eyes. The elemental changes in the chaotic storm were too difficult to comprehend. Every sword was different, and even he found it difficult to completely block them. Not bad. Pangu finally stopped trying to be brave and stopped taking the Sacred Lotus Sword Heart head-on. After a few space jumps, he caught up with Lu Chen. On the side, Nine Nether had a look of schadenfreude. TSK, you still need to dodge to fight little Lu Chen. Pangu, you only have this much strength. At this moment, Pangu had no time to talk to Nine Nether. Little Lu Chen, watch carefully. This is the first move. Galaxy Quake. Pangu threw a punch at Lu Chen. As soon as this punch was thrown, Lu Chen felt an unparalleled pressure. Even though this punch had not yet been thrown, it made him feel suffocated. This was the terrifying pressure produced by the infinite accumulation of spiritual energy. Seeing that this punch was about to land, Lu Chen's eyes widened and he roared, "Arrogant spear shield." The god-slaying spear spun rapidly in front of Lu Chen, absorbing the surrounding spiritual energy and forming a spiritual energy shield. However, the power of Pangu's punch was too terrifying. It shattered the spiritual energy shield with one punch. At this critical moment, Lu Chen roared, "Reverse Soul Roaming Dragon." The god-slaying spear blocked the galaxy quake perfectly and slightly changed the direction of Pangu's attack. Lu Chen took the opportunity to turn sideways and counterattack with his spear. Pangu blocked Lu Chen's spear with his left arm, and the star core quake with his right fist directly hit the ground. However, what shocked everyone was not Lu Chen's defense, but the fact that Pangu's punch was deflected. This punch directly penetrated the planet from the side. Yu Ming gasped. Great God, Pangu almost blew up the planet with one punch. Is he sure this is a test? And this attack was weakened by Lone Tyrant. If this punch really landed, wouldn't it turn into ashes? Originally, the three of them only thought that since it was a test, they should just casually practice. It was only now that they realized that the level of this test was enough to scare them to death. Let's leave behind the Shadow Stone and leave this place. This planet is most likely going to be lost. The three of them hurriedly teleported away. Ha 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 ha, little Lu Chen, you actually blocked my move. Fortunately, I left a way out for myself and didn't say that I would defeat you in one move. Pangu laughed loudly. I'm known as the strongest physical body. Do you think your move can hurt me? Pangu roared angrily, and a phantom exploded. It was the phantom of Pangu's true body, which was hundreds of meters tall and incomparably mighty. The enormous spiritual energy directly sent Lu Chen flying. Take another move of mine. Infinite shattering. Pangu punched again, and the momentum was even more violent than the galaxy quake. The strongest physical body. Lu Chen's eyes burned with a raging fire. His fighting spirit had already been ignited. I want to see if Great God Pangu's physical body is the strongest. Buddha body clone. Void shattering triple attack. Iron fist against iron fist. Lu Chen actually punched at Pangu. With a bang, a white light flashed through the galaxy like a white line. The entire planet could no longer withstand the exchange of blows between the two and turned into dust amidst the white light. Nine Nether's body was surrounded by black mist. Even he had no choice but to raise his defense. Are the two of you crazy? Nine Nether scolded them. At this time, the battlefield had already shifted from this planet to the vast galaxy. Lu Chen and Pangu were both sent flying. Lu Chen's two Buddha body clones were directly defeated. His right arm, which was strengthened by the emptiness of gods and demons and the dragon god form, was actually hanging by his side, unable to move. However, Pangu was not much better. His thick arm was also hanging by his side. Ha ha ha, great. Pangu did not have the slightest expression of pain. Instead, he laughed loudly. Kid, I can now tell you with certainty that your strength should be above that of a Lord God, let alone a superior God. However, although you have already passed the test, when I said that I would defeat you in 3 moves, there is still one more move. Nine Nether's face was full of displeasure. No, you think he passed the test just because you said so? Then what am I doing here? Pangu did not care about Nine Nether's protest and raised his left hand. The shadow of an ordinary-looking axe slowly appeared. When this axe appeared, Lu Chen could clearly feel that the Void God-destroying spear and the Chaos Magic Staff were trembling. Just the shadow of the axe had already caused the two divine weapons to feel unprecedented pressure. They were already suppressed by this weapon's shadow. Heaven-splitting axe. Lu Chen's eyes widened. Then, Lu Chen saw that there was another weapon. The black and white dual weapons around it began to revolve wildly and fuse with each other. The limitless sword of gods and demons was extremely excited at this time. It was as if it had searched all over the world and finally found an opponent that it was interested in. Lu Chen covered the limitless sword of gods and demons. At this moment, Lu Chen felt the turbulent spiritual energy coming from the limitless sword. It seemed to be telling its master that it wanted to fight with the heaven-splitting axe. Good, Limitless, this opponent is worthy of your excitement. Lu Chen's eyes emitted rolling green mist. Chapter 1506. Kid, watch carefully. Pangu put away his usual sloppy look and became a little serious. Big Bang Technique. A 10,000-mile-long sword chi shot toward Lu Chen as if it wanted to split space and time apart. Pangu, you're crazy. Nine Nether shouted angrily. One had to know that he was defeated by Pangu's move back then. Under this move, all movement skills couldn't be used. Either block this attack or use offense as defense to offset the spiritual power of this move. The power of this move was beyond his expectations. However, this was how battles were. Since it was here, either take it or die. Even though Lu Chen was now in the galaxy, there was still a lot of spiritual energy around him. The planet that had just been destroyed, the stars around it, and the residual spiritual energy left behind when the two fought before. These spiritual energies intertwined and entangled. Lu Chen took a deep breath. Billions of spiritual energies for my use. Great Void Form, Chaos Storm, Hell of Ice and Fire. Countless spiritual energies were attracted by Lu Chen and gathered on this sword. Then, Lu Chen swung his sword. Under this sword, the galaxy was illuminated, the sun and moon dimmed, and the stars retreated. With a loud bang, Big Bang Technique and Hell of Ice and Fire collided in the universe. Like a star being destroyed, a dazzling white light burst out. The aftershock of this collision had far exceeded the concept of aftershock. The spiritual energy turbulence formed a spiritual energy storm in the universe, and a large number of elements changed wildly. The entire battlefield was like the beginning of chaos, chaotic. Under the huge recoil, Lu Chen instantly lost consciousness, and his whole body was quickly shaken out of the storm. At this moment, a black gas quickly protected Lu Chen and wrapped him up. Lu Chen opened his eyes slightly and saw Nine Nether in front of him. Senior Nine Nether, don't talk. It's a miracle that you're still alive. Now the spiritual energy in your body has been shaken into chaos. I'll help you adjust your breathing, or your spirit core won't be safe. Pangu, that lunatic, although he didn't use the sky-splitting axe, he's still too crazy. Lu Chen felt a gentle spiritual energy enter his body, relieving the pain caused by the chaotic spiritual energy. He took the opportunity to quickly organize his spiritual energy. 10 minutes later, Lu Chen was finally able to catch his breath. His injuries were much better. Senior Nine Nether, where is Senior Pangu? Don't worry, he won't die. Not long after, a white light appeared in front of them. At this time, Pangu was also covered in blood. His hair was messed up, and his arms were hanging in front of him, unable to move. Brat, you actually survived my Big Bang Technique. Pangu said heartlessly. I say, Pangu, this is just a test. You actually used Big Bang Technique? Are you crazy? Nine Nether cursed. What do you know? Pangu was unconvinced. This kid obviously didn't use his full strength at the beginning. Besides, do you think a guy who can break through to the Renhuang plane will die so easily? After Pangu finished speaking, He looked at Lu Chen and said with a smile, "Kid, your spirit chi refinement has already entered the fourth layer. Good fellow, it seems that you have comprehended the fourth layer and helped you break through to the Renhuang plane at the same time. Senior Pangu, if you use Big Bang technique with the sky-splitting axe, how is the power compared to just now?" Lu Chen asked. Pangu thought for a moment, it should not be too far off. Not too far off. Lu Chen frowned slightly. If that was the case, was he not too far off from Pangu's strength? Pangu explained, "Your sword technique and spear technique are close to completion. You should be able to understand. For example, your spear of heaven and earth sometimes does not need the god-slaying spear. When your fusion with the weapon gradually improves, this kind of spiritual attack does not need the weapon itself to launch. This. Doesn't that mean?" Pangu had already seen what Lu Chen was thinking. He said, "How should I put it? It's actually like this. 9 nether and my current strength is not at full strength. After all, we came out of the space-time turbulence. We are only about 1% of our peak strength." When Lu Chen heard this, he could not help but shake his head. "It seems that I am still far away from surpassing the two seniors." Pangu smiled slightly, "Not far away. Boy, the rest is just a quantitative change for you. You already have the possibility of surpassing us. That is the most amazing thing." 9 Nether also nodded and said, "Although I don't know what realm is above the Renhuang plane, I think you have just broken through. There is still a lot of room for improvement, right? If your level is calculated according to 9 stars, then when you reach the peak of your current realm, you will definitely improve more than 100 times. It's just that. I found a characteristic of your realm." Pangu continued 9 Nether's words, "If my guess is correct, your strength needs to borrow external forces." Lu Chen nodded. When he resisted Big Bang technique, he did borrow external spiritual power. Pangu thought for a moment and said, "Using the connection between spiritual powers as a foundation to borrow external forces is nothing. As long as you can use spiritual power for your own use, it is your own strength. In other words, when you improve your level in the future, you must further strengthen your ability to control spiritual power. When you can observe more detailed connections, you can borrow more spiritual power. This is a very terrifying power." Lu Chen cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for your guidance, senior." 9 Nether's face was gloomy. "Pangu, you injured Lu Chen. Did you deliberately not want me to fight with him?" "What do you mean?" "I didn't." Pangu said, "Little Lu Chen's strength has long reached the level of a superior god. The reason you want to test him is that you want to test little Lu Chen's limits, right? At worst, when he recovers, you can fight with him again." Lu Chen said, "Senior 9 Nether, before I fight with you, I want to merge with the soul of the demon god. Then my strength will be further improved." Hearing this, 9 Nether was immediately interested. "That's good. Right, merge with the soul of the demon god. Let's see how much you can improve by then." "Oh. Right, little Lu Chen hasn't merged with the two souls yet." Hearing this, Pangu seemed to have suffered a loss. Lu Chen still needed some time to recover from his injuries. This time, Pangu was generous. He brought Lu Chen to find Netherworld and the others, and they returned to the world of the Bone Demon's faith. A month later, Lu Chen's injuries had recovered. The Bone Demon specially found a quiet place for Lu Chen. It was in an open basin in the middle of several snowy mountains. Pangu and 9 Nether stood in front of Lu Chen, and Lu Chen had already taken out the demon god's souls. Pangu said solemnly, "Lu Chen, split your spiritual power into 2 and pour it into the 2 souls. Note that the 2 souls will only be fully activated after absorbing enough spiritual power. After activating the 2 souls, you need to fuse your spiritual power into 1. This process also consumes a huge amount of spiritual power." 9 Nether also said, "The fusion process is extremely dangerous. Remember not to use force during the fusion. The demon god souls are not of the same kind and repel each other. If there's a slight mistake, the two souls will be annihilated, and your spirit core may be damaged. If it's light, you'll be seriously injured, and if it's heavy, you'll die. You need to control your spiritual power to an extremely fine degree, so that the demon god souls can restrain and reinforce each other. Only then can you fuse them. When the two souls fuse, because they have already formed a connection with your spiritual power, they will automatically recognize you as their master. If the fusion fails, our main task is to protect the two souls. At that time, we won't have time to ensure your safety. Do you understand? Lu Chen nodded. Pangu asked, "Are you ready?" Lu Chen took a deep breath, "I'm ready." Chapter 1507. Lu Chen followed Pangu and Nine Nether's instructions and injected his spiritual energy into the souls. Due to Lu Chen's special physique, the injection of spiritual energy did not encounter any resistance. The two balls of light gradually brightened. The next step was to fuse the two souls. At this point, Lu Chen needed to be extremely cautious. To promote the fusion of the two souls, he could not use too much force, which would cause the two souls to reject each other and cause an accident. Pangu and Nine Nether did not dare to speak. They just stared at Lu Chen. Once an accident happened, they must seize the two souls. The two souls floated in the air, and under Lu Chen's coordination, they were looking for some kind of balance. Time passed by, but no one dared to rush Lu Chen. 7 hours later, the two souls began to converge at the center, and Pangu and Nine Nether also became nervous. They had reached the most crucial step. The two souls each stretched out their spiritual threads like tentacles, trying to touch each other. Most of these tentacles were instantly cancelled out. After repeated attempts, finally, a few tentacles connected with each other. "Don't rush. Don't rush. Take it slow." Pangu stared at Lu Chen, not daring to speak. He seemed to be talking to himself, but also seemed to be hoping that Lu Chen could hear him. More than 10 hours later, more and more spiritual threads connected with each other. When Lu Chen had been fusing for more than 20 hours, countless spiritual tentacles had appeared between the two souls. Under the pull of the tentacles, the two souls slowly approached each other. The moment the two souls touched, Pangu and Nine Nether's nerves also tensed up to the extreme. Suddenly, a spiritual energy ring exploded in an instant, raising wind and snow all over the sky. Then, the two souls merged into a Tai Chi disc, rose into the air, and slowly rotated. Not long after, the fish eye of the twin fish pattern was successfully formed. A Tai Chi disc fell from the air and floated in front of Lu Chen. "It's done." Pangu's eyes widened in excitement, the fusion of the two souls is successful. Lu Chen was already exhausted. Not only was his spiritual energy empty, but the high-intensity and high-precision operation had also exhausted him. He looked at the disc in front of him and smiled. "Have you finally succeeded?" The disc slowly rotated in front of Lu Chen for a moment, and then suddenly flew to Lu Chen's chest. Lu Chen watched helplessly as the disc merged into his body. Where is the soul of the fiend god?" Lu Chen's eyes widened. Pangu and Nine Nether hurried over. "Didn't I tell you that it has already recognized you as its master? It has already merged with your body." "Ah. It's another body strengthening technique. It doesn't just strengthen your physical body. Most importantly, it strengthens your soul." Lu Chen frowned. "Strengthening the soul?" "Yes." Nine Nether said, "If I'm not wrong, your god's blood demon seed should have improved. In addition, the strength of your soul has improved. Illusions, charms, and mind attacks are all ineffective against you. Not only that, but it has also increased the attributes of your life reverser divine demon set. Since it has already recognized you as its master, you can check it directly." Lu Chen hurriedly checked his various skills. The soul of the fiend god had increased the level of dual polarity heaven's might. At the same time, it was immune to all soul control skills. Now that Lu Chen's heaven's might of the fiend god had risen to level 5, the upper limit of absorbing attributes was removed. The range of influence was based on the maximum range that Lu Chen could sense. The life reverser divine demon set's cultivation techniques had all improved. The cooldown period for the fiend god astral body in heaven's might of the fiend god had been removed, and their effects had improved. The inner demons would no longer be able to control Lu Chen's soul. The Great Void Arm had been strengthened, and its attack had increased from 2 times to 5 times. In the Great Void form, its attack had increased from 5 times to 20 times. The Heaven's Eye was no longer limited by distance and obstacles, and Lu Chen could sense spiritual energy. In other words, Lu Chen could see any area within the range of his spiritual energy perception, and he could ignore illusions and other charms. The Heaven's Eye had always been a supplementary skill. After Lu Chen obtained the soul of the fiend god, it finally had the degree that the fiend god set should have. Although the soul of the fiend god did not have any skills, the limitless sword of the fiend god finally had a skill that Lu Chen could use. Limitless Firmament has a total of 3 moves, namely Destruction, Ultimate, and Limitless. The level is unknown. However, he could only use Destruction and Ultimate. The last move was missing Empyrean gods and demons. The effects of the soul of the fiend god could only be described as powerful. It had greatly increased the other fiend god sets. It could be said that without the soul of the fiend god and with it, many pieces of equipment were on 2 completely different levels. Lu Chen took a deep breath. He had finally found the soul of the fiend god. At this point, the limitless sword of the fiend god, Heavenly Might, Fiend God Lotus Heart, Fiend God 9 Transformations, Fiend God Origin Sutra, Emptiness of Gods and Demons Arm, Fiend God Heaven's Eye, and the soul of the fiend god set. Lu Chen had already collected 8 of the 9 pieces of the fiend god set. Now, he only lacked the 9th transformation of the fiend god 9 Transformations, as well as the Empyrean gods and demons that gave Lu Chen a headache. Pangu and Nine Nether looked at each other, and the 2 enemies actually smiled at each other. We actually succeeded. Nine Nether, our mission has finally been completed. Nine Nether nodded in relief. Yes, that person's commission has finally been completed. We finally have one less thing to worry about. Speaking of which, I really did not expect that someone could actually collect so many pieces of the fiend god set. Lu Chen recovered from his excitement and looked at the 2 great gods. Many thanks to the 2 seniors for helping me. If not for the 2 of you giving me the soul of the fiend god and teaching me how to fuse them, I reckon it would have been very difficult to fuse the soul of the fiend god. Pangu smiled faintly. Little Lu Chen, this is the result of your own efforts. Why are you thanking us? Yes, it's not the first time we've fused the soul of the fiend god with someone else, but you're the first to be able to truly fuse them. Well, seeing that you can fuse the soul of the fiend god, our mission can finally be completed. Pangu heaved a long sigh of relief. Nine Nether, do you still want to fight with him? Nine Nether actually shook his head to express his refusal. Actually, there's no need. Little Lu Chen's fighting skills are not inferior to yours or mine. This time, his actual combat skills have increased by at least 20 times. This can be calculated. If I were to fight with him, I reckon I'd be beaten up by this kid. Pangu laughed mischievously. At least you have some self-awareness, kid. Little Lu Chen, even the Chaos Fiend God is afraid of you. Lu Chen smiled faintly. Senior must be joking. You're not at your true strength now. If I were to really meet the Chaos Fiend God himself, I'm far from being his match. Nine Nether shook his head. You're not his match now, but you still have potential. This is something that people like us don't have in the past. Kid, take care of yourself in the future. If you have the chance, come visit us again in the turbulence. Lu Chen frowned. Seniors, are you leaving? Yes, our mission has been completed. Now that your strength is one level higher, we can't show off as much as you. What's the point of staying here? By the way, little Lu Chen, this is for you. Pangu said and threw over a scroll. Lu Chen lowered his head to look at the scroll. On it were the words, Big Bang Theory. This. Lu Chen stared at Pangu with wide eyes. This was Pangu's famous skill. Pangu smiled. Don't be happy too early. This move doesn't suit you. As for its power, you can't unleash it without the sky-splitting axe. It's not as good as your own cultivation method. However, if you want to save Mu Sheng, you still have to learn this move. It can cut off Mu Sheng from Hongmeng's control. Nine Nether was a little anxious. Pangu actually gave Lu Chen a cultivation method in front of him. Then wouldn't he be falling behind? Speaking of which, both of them came from the turbulence and couldn't bring anything with them. In other words, Pangu's technique was secretly handwritten by him. This despicable person actually secretly wrote a cultivation method when he wasn't paying attention. Cough cough, I don't have anything to give you. However, little Lu Chen, in the Jyotian stellar space, that is, the extraterrestrial fiend god palace, quickly break through to the 9th level. There's something you want there. Chapter 1508. Well, little Lu Chen, we'll meet again if we're fated. Seeing Pangu and Nine Nether turn around, Lu Chen suddenly felt a sense of reluctance. These two guys were somewhat unreliable. Even if they had helped him, it was because of him. However, they and Goddess Nuo had both helped him, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Moreover, without the two of them, there would be one less pair of clowns on the road. Seniors, don't fight on the way back. Lu Chen shouted to the two of them from afar. However, the two of them didn't seem to hear him at all. They were just talking to each other emotionally. They were probably arguing about something again. After the two great gods left, Yu Ming and the others finally dared to come to Lu Chen's side. Brother Quang, is my current appearance useless? Are you still seeing my original body? Bone Demon asked worriedly. Lu Chen smiled slightly. No, as long as you don't use the heavenly eye, it's fine. Oh, that's good. Then don't use the heavenly eye to look at me in the future. Yu Ming and Dry Claw looked at each other and smiled. Then Yu Ming asked, Lu Chen, are you going to find your friend right away? Lu Chen nodded. It's been more than 20 years. This time, while Hong Meng is not here, I'm going to bring Mu Xing back. Bone Claw frowned. However, even if Hong Meng is not here, he must know that you've taken Mu Xing away. I'm afraid he'll still look for you. Lu Chen snorted coldly. I don't care so much. The alien battlefield is already a mess, and he hasn't come out yet. I don't think he'll come out specifically for Mu Xing. Even if he wants to find trouble with me, I'll have to accompany him. Just as Lu Chen was about to leave with Yu Ming and the others, Lu Chen suddenly stopped. Wait. Yu Ming and the others looked at Lu Chen in surprise. What's wrong? Lu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly. Someone's coming. As soon as he finished speaking, the clouds above their heads rolled, and several golden lights fell. This. Who came to the world of my faith? Bone Demon shouted angrily. Following the golden lights, 5 figures quickly appeared beside Lu Chen, encircling Lu Chen, Netherworld, and the others. These people were all from the evil spirit race. The leader was dressed in a purple robe and had a fierce face. The death god scythe in his hand was especially eye-catching. Solipsistic, I've finally found you. It turns out that you've actually gone to outer space. No wonder there's been no news of you for so many years. Lu Chen looked coldly at the 5 of them. The leader was a high god, while the other 4 were high-star gods. Instead of going to the alien battlefield, you've been looking for me everywhere. Who are you? What are you trying to do? Lu Chen said coldly. We're from the spirit faction. We've already investigated the identities of the two people who were following you. The leader said. It's actually Pangu and Joyo. Originally, we didn't dare to touch you when they were by your side. However, the two of them have returned to the Firmament Palace and Joyo Devil Cave. That is to say, you have no more helpers. Lu Chen snorted coldly. This group of people obviously came prepared. Then again, the two seniors, Pangu and Joyo, had returned too quickly. Since Pangu and Joyo have returned, you must have combined the souls of the celestial and demon. In that case, you only need the 9th transformation of the celestial and demon fate-defying suit. One of his subordinates frowned. Isn't there still the celestial and demon Wuxian? The leader said impatiently, that thing doesn't exist. There are only 8 pieces of the celestial and demon fate-defying suit. He has almost collected all of them. We have to kill him now and get the suit. Lu Chen sneered. So you're after my celestial and demon fate-defying suit? Humph, so what? We have to thank you for collecting the celestial and demon fate-defying suit. It saved us a lot of trouble. Solipsistic, hand over the celestial and demon fate-defying suit and we may leave you and your friends intact. Lu Chen's eyes were already burning with killing intent. Spiritual system. It seems that Kong Gu sent you here. That guy only cares about comprehending the way of heaven and doesn't care about the lives of his subordinates. I can't believe there are people who are willing to work for him. It's not about working for him. It's just that we have completed the task given by the Supreme Spiritual God. If we make a great contribution, we will have the opportunity to enter the All-Spirit Star Group first. Oh, so it's an exchange of interests. Lu Chen sneered. But since you have found out about Pangu and Joyo, you also know that I have been to outer space these years. Why didn't you find out what I experienced there? I don't care what you experienced. Didn't you just defeat a few low-star medium gods? Even if I give you 20 years, I will still kill you like killing a chicken. Brothers, the opportunity to enter the All-Spirit Star Group is right in front of you. You must take this man down. After saying that, the 5 of them quickly surrounded Lu Chen. Netherworld and the others looked at Lu Chen. Lu Chen had just merged with the God-Fiend's soul and had consumed a lot of energy. They didn't know if he could still fight. Lone Tyrant, we will help you hold on for a while. You go to the market and rest. Lu Chen smiled and patted Netherworld's shoulder. Brother Netherworld, why do I need to rest to kill these bugs? Wait a moment. The 5 of them had already rushed toward Lu Chen. Lu Chen's eyelids contracted, and he suddenly turned into a golden light and shot into the enemy's formation. 9 Spear Shadow Spear. The higher god didn't even have time to react before the god-slaying spear pierced through his heart. However, after Lu Chen killed the enemy with this move, he didn't stop his attack. In the blink of an eye, God's descent coordinated with Lu Chen's movement, and Lu Chen consecutively fired several spears. Boom, 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 boom. A series of spiritual energy explosions caused by the shattering of spiritual shields rang out. In just an instant, the 5 of them were all killed by Lu Chen. In the battle between Lu Chen and Pangu, Lu Chen had always been at a disadvantage. Therefore, Netherworld and the others hadn't directly seen how terrifying Lu Chen was. However, after killing 5 gods in an instant, they truly realized how exaggerated Lu Chen's combat strength was. A higher god couldn't even withstand one move from Lu Chen and was instantly killed. You. The leader still had a breath left. He looked at Lu Chen in shock, his eyes filled with disbelief. How can you be so strong? You are just a mortal. How can you be so strong? Lu Chen coldly snorted. It's true that I am a mortal, but I have also killed many gods. How can you only remember that I am a mortal and not that I have never shown mercy? After saying that, Lu Chen directly killed this person with a single spear strike. After a perfect ending, Lu Chen looked at Netherworld and the other two. You'd better move to another belief world first. I estimate that there are many people looking for me. It's not safe for you to block me here. I want to go to the Tree God planet. This time, the pursuers had chased them to the belief world of Bone Demon. Lu Chen believed that there would be many more to come, so he asked Netherworld and the others to temporarily avoid them. On the other hand, Lu Chen had already gone to the Tree God planet alone. Standing on this continent that was more than 80% covered by forests, Lu Chen took a deep breath. Is this the world where Mu Sheng is? Mu Sheng, are you okay? This time, I must find you and bring you back to see our son. Just as Lu Chen was about to open his heaven's eye to look for Mu Sheng, suddenly, Lu Chen felt the ground under his feet shake violently. A familiar voice sounded. How dare you? How dare you trespass into the belief world of the primordial god? Today, I will make you fertilizer here. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.